Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Las Vegas and Bar Canada at the D Hotel in downtown Sin City. Andrew Paterson here, getting ready for tonight's first round of the NFL Draft and a packed show for Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We have a lot to get to today. Some pretty huge broadcasting news, which will start off. Obviously, a nice win for the Jets last night in Eric Comrie's first shutout in game number 80 of the regular season. And in addition, the playoff teams are set, albeit matchups not quite yet, as the Vegas Golden Knights were eliminated last night from playoff contention. Going to be a great show. Darrin Bauming is going to join us. Now, DB, we are going to touch on a little bit of CFL with the few rule changes that were announced yesterday. And, of course, next week's CFL draft. We'll also get DB's thoughts on the Jets season so far. It's been a little while since Darrin's joined us on the program, so looking forward to that. Scott Billeck as well for a Jets conversation in our second guest segment. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming in a favorite of ours on Winnipeg Sports Talk, my guy, Andy McNamara, who will join me live right here at Bar Canada at the D coming up later on in the second hour of the program. We'll get Andy's thoughts on some of the big NFL storylines going into tonight's first round of the NFL draft. One of the most intriguing drafts I think we've seen in a long time. Not a lot of high-end quarterback talent as it compares to maybe the last few drafts. And I think what that has done is really given more intrigue into how things are going to shake out, potential deals, as well as many teams having multiple picks in the first round. So we're going to get to that. We will also talk, I'm not sure if you checked out the Winnipeg Sports Talk Instagram yesterday or this evening or yet today, but Andy and I, there's a little event for the UFF, which Andy's involved in and doing some work with here in Vegas this week. And we had a special guest at the table last night, fantasy god himself, Austin Eckler. What a nice guy he was. Very impressive young man. Talk about that a little bit, but if you do want to check the picture, you can go over to Instagram, and while you're there, give us a follow at Sports Talk WPG. All right, big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen. We're not here. We're not on the air if they're not behind us. And so appreciative to Wallace & Wallace, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, our betting partners over at Coolbet Canada. We will do the Coolbet Lines with Andy a little bit later on. I'm going to hit him with some of the Coolbet props that are up right now on tonight's NFL Draft. As well as another busy night in the National Hockey League. And tomorrow, a massive night. Of course, it was supposed to be the final night of the regular season. There will be one more game. That game will be Sunday at Canada Life Center as the Jets and the Seattle Kraken make up for the postponed game from a couple weeks back due to one of our weekly Colorado lows that keep coming through the city. I cannot believe it. I saw our guy Rob Zobbs today on Twitter this morning saying it's like every weekend you get a Colorado low coming up, and looking for some more wetness over the course of the weekend, but it won't be snow. That being said, we'll see what that does to flood conditions. All I know is that this is going to be a great show. Let's get Michael Remis in here to start things off. Remo, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing good, Huss. I've been, I think everyone out there can relate that it is tax season, and this is our first time running a business, having to do all this stuff. So I've been stressing over my personal return, and getting our business stuff in order. So I'm feeling good though. I figured out. I'm figuring it out. We're doing good. So I'm in a good mood about that. It is the end of the hockey season, and while this is a depressing end and not the way we thought it would be for the Jets, it did just feel like a bit of a celebratory atmosphere. Just like the end of the season, looking forward to the summer. It's finally getting warm here. There's no snow on the ground. There's a lot of fan appreciation stuff they're trying to pump up for the weekend. So, I'm in actually a pretty good mood. We've kind of got past the misery of the season, and we were there to watch two teams last night. And, we're pumped for Nikolai Ehlers getting close to his 30 mark.
One more, Nick.
Yeah,
29's the mark. 29. 30 would be great. 29 is the number that we need, as we all know.
and third, Kyle Connor closing in on 50, outside chance. But Eric Connor, I think a lot of happiness for him getting that shutout. But that's
Yeah.
sorry. I'm going, as Ken would say, I think I'm hitting the buffet of a lot of topics there. How am I doing? I'm stressed, but feeling good. Sorry, I kind of went on there.
Okay, just on a couple of the things that you mentioned. First off, yes, it is tax season. We've got a couple days to finish up and get it in. A personal thank you to our guy Mike Lay at Book and Partners, who has been, personally and from Winnipeg Sports Talk perspective, has helped us out immensely. So, and I know he's a regular listener. Maybe not right now because of how busy they are finishing up tax season, but a big thanks to Mike for his incredible help for us. And listen, we'll get to the game. And I can't wait to hear what the atmosphere was like in the Philly radio booth that you were taking up last night. I'm sure they've had some. I'm sure they're quite looking forward to the end of the season. But listen, before we get into last night's game and Eric Comrie's first career shutout and all of that, some big news that is very significant to all Winnipeg Jet fans. TSN announcing just in the past couple of hours that legendary play-by-play voice and our favorite Dennis Beyak will be retiring from Winnipeg Jets broadcast at the end of the current season. Now, here's the official message from TSN PR. Dennis Beyak, longtime play-by-play voice of Jets on TSN, has announced he will retire from Winnipeg Jets broadcast at the end of the current season. Dennis will continue to appear as part of TSN's international hockey coverage. So we will get more Dennis this year. Covering the World Championships will be fantastic. And then they go on to say, we congratulate Dennis on his incredible career as the voice of the Jets and look forward to having him continue as a valued member of our international hockey broadcast team. What can I say, Remis? And I know you'll share these. I mean, from us here in our new spot at Winnipeg Sports Talk, from everyone that was part of the TSN team before the nuke went down over on Pembina Highway, Dennis has been, someone that has helped us immensely with how generous he was with his time. And with his knowledge, with his enthusiasm and love and passion for the game, and bottom line, for his incredible calls, bringing Winnipeg Jets hockey to fans of Winnipeg and the Jets for 11 years. And it's going to be a huge loss for hockey fans. I have a hard time just imagining watching Jets on TSN without Dennis. And much like Bob Irving leaving, Derek Taylor popping in, you want to talk about a big pair of shoes to fill for whoever is next up in the TSN booth for Winnipeg Jets hockey. It won't be the same without Dennis, but from myself, and I know you, Reem, and really I think everyone that follows the Winnipeg Jets, and certainly that's here talking with us each and every day on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. An incredible congratulations and a heartfelt thank you to Dennis for everything that he has done since coming here and being the voice of our team for 11 years since starting off in that magical 2011 season.
Yeah, I remember Dennis coming in he was in Edmonton and then Toronto and then came here. The first time I really met him was in 2012 during the lockout shortened season. I produced a show with Rick, Shane, and Dennis, and I, was pretty young and hadn't really done anything. But Dennis was always so nice and, always asking me.
Patient with you, I'm
patient,
sure.
Yeah, always wanted to know how I was doing, and whenever I would call him, always, very generous with his time, and I've seen a lot of great tributes on Twitter that all true. Nicest guy, Dennis. Great call as well. Legendary voice. Well, definitely, you think of him, then you think of Jets highlights. The one that I think of is they would play it on 1290 all the time, Huss. The Line A hat trick one.
The first thing that came to my mind. The very first thing that came to my mind.
Like going bonkers for that hat trick goal. Maybe because they played it in this promo over and over. I don't know if people in chat have a call, but I saw Daniel Fink tweeting out, and the Jets go bang bang, or someone referencing a twisted wrister in the chat.
My favorite Beyakism, which comes out all the time, and it's a simple one, but it's unique, and you hear it all the time, and no one else did it. Was tight turns.
Tight turns.
Tight turns for Dennis Beyak. The guys just, and listen, we've seen some really tight turns from the likes of Kyle Connor, who we'll get to in a minute. But yes, bang bang. Will be. I can't go to a restaurant or even to the grocery store when I do and see bang bang shrimp without thinking of our good friend Dennis Beyak. So listen, I know he and his lovely wife will be making the most of their time. But what an incredible, and the thing about Dennis that I'm not sure everybody knows. And this is close to the heart for me because, Dennis started doing this, on the other side of the business. I mean, he was working in the front office for a number of teams. He was the general manager in the Western Hockey League, and then got an opportunity to sort of slide in to do broadcasting and realized that he was one of the best there is and never looked back. So it's just an amazing career and a guy that has meant so much to this community. And to be honest, I think in a lot of ways, and I'm sure if you talk to, Mark Chipman and people at the Winnipeg Jets organization, getting Dennis Beyak here to call Winnipeg Jet games from the get-go of the return of the franchise was huge because, you had a recognizable name and one of the top broadcasters in the game deciding that he was going to come and be part of this new team. And listen, it's been an incredible run for Dennis. I really do look forward to at some point. Normally we'll have people come on for, a segment and talk to him for 20 minutes or a half hour. We might have to just do a Dennis Beyak special because one of the things that I'm most thankful for knowing Dennis over the course of, my time back with the old station and, being around him is, he's in the hockey encyclopedia. He's got incredible stories, and his storytelling ability, in addition to being able to paint a picture of what's happening on the ice for people watching the games, is second to none. So a hearty congratulations to Dennis. We're definitely going to miss him. And 2 more chances to listen to Dennis call playoff hockey for the Winnipeg Jets this next couple season. And I'll say this, maybe in some ways, listen, we'd all want this team to be in the playoffs, but there might be one small silver lining of the team not being in, because one of the things that really did suck every year was that we'd finish off the regular season, and if the team went to the playoffs, there were no more games on TSN. We didn't get to have Dennis's call, for the Jet games of what people are used to. So 2 more games left in the season, 2 more games with Dennis on the microphone, and he will go out as an incredible incredible member of this Winnipeg media community, the hockey broadcasting community. And tell you what, Reem, for the last 10 years, we have been, 11 years, we have been incredibly blessed with having 2 iconic voices giving their play-by-play to Winnipeg fans in Bob Irving and Dennis Beyak. And things will look and sound very, very different next year, but both of those individuals have certainly left their mark.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Winnipeg's been pretty lucky with Dennis and Bob Irving, who was the voice of Bombers for so many years. Both moving on at the same time is pretty wild. So there's always been already, as you know, on the internet, rampant speculation on who the next voice could be. I don't know who it is. I'm not going to speculate. However, I will say very, very big shoes to fill, and we have been spoiled with Dennis doing play-by-play. Every time he would do like World Juniors or, he would get bumped up maybe to a national game when TSN had the rights, I'd always see, people on Twitter who maybe didn't watch the Jets broadcast regularly, but were hockey fans, be like, wow, this Dennis is really good. Like, you just see people in Toronto be like, oh, we're really missing out on this guy. So we've been very lucky. And, you think of Jets games, you think of Dennis leading the way, whether with, Shane or Kevin Sawyer now or whoever, but Brian Engblom's been in, Mike Johnson, whoever goes in. But it's been a great run, and interesting to see, how it happens going forward. But first and foremost, we do wish Dennis all the best.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as I said, at some point, hopefully soon, but whenever it works, obviously we'll be doing the World Championships. We'll get Dennis. What would be great to do is, and now that we've got the equipment, the ability to sit down like we'll do with Andy McNamara later on, get in the same place, kind of like we used to do back in a legitimate studio, and have some face-to-face conversations and talk about some great stories and Dennis's memories of his amazing broadcast career. So, Dennis, thinking about you today, congratulations, and on behalf of everyone that is a part of Winnipeg Sports Talk, both myself and Michael Remis and everyone that's with us on a daily basis, listening to the podcast and watching on the YouTube channel. Thank you and congratulations. Well, of course, Dennis did get to call. I guess he wasn't calling last night's game because I believe it was a Sportsnet game, if I'm not mistaken. I was obviously watching here down in Sin City. 2 more games for Dennis as well. But Paulie Edmonds, of course, was on the air last night calling Eric Comrie's first shutout, Reem. And I was texting you, of course, here, had to lay a little wager on the Jets. We had a first period ticket and a Jets puck line ticket. But, you know, when the team was up in the third period, it wasn't about cashing any bets. It was about seeing if Eric Comrie and the Winnipeg Jets could hold on for his first career NHL shutout. And, you know, Comrie, in a disappointing season, has been one of the real bright lights and great stories of the Winnipeg Jets year. You know, has had by far his best campaign as an NHLer. And to be honest, is the first opportunity to really be a backup that, you know, that plays some minutes. And I'm sure many people would agree they probably could have used maybe a little bit more Eric Comrie this year. But for a guy that is just such a wonderful dude when it comes down to it. I mean, anyone that's met him, even if you didn't know he was a hockey player, you'd walk away going, wow, what a nice young man. I think everyone was feeling it. I was feeling it watching the game. You were there in the booth last night from talking to people at the game. Everyone, and teammates especially, really happy for Eric Comrie to get that goose egg and get shutout number 1 as a National Hockey Leaguer.
Yeah, I think as the game was winding down and it looked like the Jets were going to win, Philly had some pressure at the end, but my one thought was, okay, let's make this a success, and hopefully Comrie can hang on for the shutout. I mean, we've went on before, you know, talking about what the preseason sentiment among emails that we got and DMs. People are saying, well, if Comrie plays, the Jets aren't going to win a game, and which was, I mean, people said that to us, and well, I thought it was ridiculous at the time. I mean, it was fair to say he was an unproven NHL goalie, but I think that you can toss it aside. He's definitely proved he's more than capable as a backup. And I know it was against, you know, one of the worst teams in the NHL, but hey, he got his first career shutout, and you know everyone's happy. And he's always been so gracious with his time coming on with us or the old station. And couldn't be happier for him to get his first career shutout yesterday. And, you know, they made him work for it a bit. Then he had to make some tight saves. But JVR going through the legs in front. There are a couple other good chances, but he was on yesterday, and hey, it's the weird time at the end of the year. If anyone's playing fantasy, if you picked him up and you're still playing, or you started him in DraftKings last night, you did pretty well. I may have, you know, put him in a lineup with the Jets, so I was happy for him.
You know what? This is actually a perfect time to take advantage of the live nature of this show. And for folks that are on the podcast, you know, unfortunately, you won't be able to own it. But for people that are with us on YouTube right now, in the chat, let's own up to those freezing cold takes. It's mea culpa time. You can not necessarily ask for forgiveness, but feel free. I know there's many of you out there that were all over Eric Comrie. Now it's time to congratulate Comrie for his first shutout and own those takes at the start of the year that he could not get the job done. Overall, I mean, still, it's a disappointing end to the season for the Winnipeg Jets. And I gotta say, the Philadelphia Flyers. I was hoping to have Brandon on today, but I'm very looking forward to having Scott on, Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun. In that Brandon, of course, a famous Philadelphia Flyers fan, was going to go to the game last night. He's a bit under the weather, but that is a team that has had, as bad as the Winnipeg Jets season is. If you're in the misery loves company group, check out the Philadelphia Flyers. And Remo, you were working the Philly broadcast booth last night, and I can imagine those individuals, anyone that's been around the Flyers this year, counting down the periods until the end of game number 82.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough season for the Flyers. You know, they've had a lot of injuries and not a lot of success. And I think the game last night, I don't want to call it a glorified preseason game, but I mean, the hitting, I think there was more hitting at my Tuesday skate at River Heights Arena here, Hustler. So, they're ready to move on to next year, and the Jets were happy to pad their fantasy stats. Kyle Connor getting close to 50, Ehlers close to 30, and Dubois, you know, putting up some career numbers as well. So, you know, nice opponents for the Jets, who are, you know, going to dress their squad going up against teams that are pretty much done. Seattle. I am curious about Calgary, what kind of roster we're going to see here on Friday from Calgary, because the Rangers didn't play anyone, and if you were looking at the betting lines, Montreal was a big underdog, and the Rangers, they didn't dress Trouba, Fox, Panarin, and there's so many guys. Kopp didn't dress. The Kings sat Kopitar, Kempe. So I am curious about what kind of Calgary team we are going to see. If for those of us who do want to see Kyle Connor get 50 or Ehlers hit over 28.5 was the number.
Over 28.5. That was a big one last night. My phone blew up immediately. Weeb texting. I know Mitch from Winnipeg Hockey Talk was all fired up because he, like many of us, jumped on that number before. So yes, we need one more goal from Nikolai Ehlers. Would love to see 2 and get 30. But while 30 is the milestone that most people are paying attention to, 29 is the milestone that we are paying attention to, and they do. And you make a great point about Calgary, Reem. I mean, they're locked in first place right now. They know exactly what's going to be happening next week. They want to stay healthy. They want to be ready, rested, and good to go to avoid what happened to them in 5 games the last time they were in the playoffs. And that, of course, was another time where they were in first place. They won the first game against the Avalanche and then lost the next 4 and were out seemingly just as the playoffs started right now. So the other thing that's happening right now is that we're going to be getting a bit more clarity as to what these playoff races or how the playoff matchups are going to end up. But, I mean, there still is quite a bit to be decided. I mean, only a few series completely locked in. That being said, there is one team that was still in it last night going into it that is officially out, and it is the Vegas Golden Knights. And I'll tell you a little funny story. I came down here. Usually I'll try and get down about an hour before doing the show here, make sure we're set up, talk to you, just a little bit of additional prep and be ready to go. And this incredible area at the D at Bar Canada, which, I mean, the technology that they put into this spot is absolutely second to none. I mean, basically fully broadcast ready. A bunch of individuals from the Vegas Golden Knights were just here. Now, Gary's on the road, so it wasn't Gary, but I just saw Darrin Millard, Darren Elliott, some other people from the front office, along with the owner of the D and Circa, Derek Stevens, which was really cool to meet him. And they were talking about, some tech stuff for some, events and broadcasts that they're planning that potentially could come here. But I got about a good 15-minute chat with Millard on the season, and I said to him, hey, Darren, you're down in Vegas. What do you think the odds we could have got on both the Jets and the Vegas Golden Knights missing the playoffs? And he just sort of laughed. And, I mean, it really is incredible. And on top of it all, Reem, when you think the last 4 games for Vegas have gone to OT, the last 3 have gone into shootouts. Vegas is 0-17 in the shootout in these last 3 games. And I got to tell you, considering what happened with Marc-Andre Fleury being traded, Robin Lehner and Laurent Brossoit were the tandem. Brossoit on the LTIR when they needed to activate Mark Stone. And then, of course, the Robin Lehner saga that we've talked about. Logan Thompson has come in and played incredibly well for Vegas. And to be honest, really deserved a better fate. I don't know what the odds are on a team going 17 straight shootout attempts without scoring with the talent they have on that team. But, in a lot of ways, it sort of speaks to the shocking nature of their season overall, and even more, how they bowed out of the playoffs in these last few games, including the shootout losses to the San Jose Sharks and last night to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, I thought, Vegas, they were Stanley Cup contenders. They made the playoffs every year in existence, and to not make the playoffs this year, disappointing. I think you do have to say, hey, Eichel was out. I know they traded for an injured player, but he was out. Pacioretty out. Stone has been out. They have had a lot of players, out this season, and even when they came here on defense as well, missing a number of regulars. But it's tough when you have that many injuries, and I know we said, don't want to hear excuses, but I do think they have a bit of a legitimate excuse. However, the way they handled the goaltending trading, the Vezina Trophy winner, Marc-Andre Fleury, bringing in Robin Lehner, I think people left a bad taste in people's mouths. Nate Schmidt signing a long-term deal and then getting traded for the shiny new object in Alex Pietrangelo. I think a lot of hockey fans, kind of turned off by the way they've just gone for the new thing over and over again, and also just jealous that they had success early on. Look, it's not Vegas's fault that they were gifted. Who do they? Riley Smith and Marchessault from Florida. Wasn't Vegas's fault that Minnesota, gave them 2 players in Tuck and Hall, to keep one player. Like, teams gave them, so I'm all for it with the success they had, but I am seeing a lot of people very pumped that their fans finally get to experience some misery of being a hockey fan.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've been on Twitter very much since last night, but I mean, the gravestone meme with the guy sitting by the gravestone doing the peace sign, and so they've got the Sabres. Speaking of the peace sign, there we go right there. The Sabres, the Coyotes even got into it. Now, I don't think it was the official accounts, but yeah, no one feeling too bad for Vegas right now. They've had a lot of success. They do have a lot of talent, but paying with $92 million on the books to not have a playoff gate. What's going to be fascinating is to see how owner Bill Foley handles things. And as I was talking to the guys, here off air, I think there is a lot of intrigue as to how exactly it will go from here. We'll touch on that with the Bauming coming up. Really looking forward to having Darrin on the show. There it is. God, that one cracks me up. But hey, listen, just quickly before we bring in Darrin Bauming, I want to thank Wallace & Wallace, our newest sponsor, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist, for jumping on board with Winnipeg Sports Talk. Wallace & Wallace has been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call at 452-2700. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, wood, they've got the right fence for you. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. The experts at Wallace will come down, arrange a time to give you a free estimate, but you can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston. A big day coming up on Friday at Vita Health Fresh Market. Hey, every day Vita Health is stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products, all at great prices, with an amazingly knowledgeable staff trained on these products that'll help you get exactly what you need, not to mention a great grab-and-go deli with healthy and delicious Vita Market salads, soups, and sandwiches. But Friday, it's 10% off pretty much everything in the store. So if you've been waiting to get out to Vita Health, or you've got some needs, why don't you get a great deal on Friday and head out to any of the 7 locations. And of course, you can also go to myvita.ca. They've redone their website, fully shoppable as well, so you can get whatever you need, put it in the cart, and schedule a delivery with Instacart as well. Myvita.ca. And again, Customer Appreciation Day on Friday for our friends over at Vita Health. And, hey, with summer just around the corner, even here in the heat, we do see people that are pulling out the suits. I have not done so as of yet, trying to keep it a little bit more cash. Might have to throw the Mahomes jersey on tonight for the NFL draft. But we can tell you that if you're thinking about any sort of suit, don't go anywhere else other than F Apparel, the leaders in custom suits for men with a full line of custom clothing for any occasion. And now's a great time to do it, to get ready for weddings and other events coming up this summer and into next year, because they've got all their new summer stock, textiles, fabrics in over 250 different patterns for you to choose from. So head on down to 190 Smith Street to find out more. F Apparel, EPHapparel.com. And if you do have a wedding party coming up, don't bother wasting your money on rentals. Go talk to the guys there. They'll give you 15% off for the entire wedding party when you buy your suits from F. All right, let's get to it. Welcoming our first guest of the program, Billeck, coming up later on, and my guy Andy McNamara will join me live here at Bar Canada at the D Hotel in Vegas. But let's get to it with Darrin Bauming back on the program. DB, man, great to talk to you. How you been hanging?
Oh.
Hold on a sec, DB. I think we got it's a mute either on our end or your end.
I got to pick his microphone. I don't know.
Let's pick the microphone. Of course, Darrin with our friends at his channel over at Bonfire Sports, getting ready for a big CFL season. Hard to believe it's pretty much just around the corner. And Darrin's also been doing some great work covering the Winnipeg Jets all season long for NHL.com. We good? How are we good with? We got the mic up yet, boys?
We had you before.
Huh. Interesting. DB, why don't you pop back out and pop back in? That usually is what the one of the best ways of doing it.
He's got a couple microphones there. Maybe the wrong ones picked. I don't know.
Who is it that had all the mics last week? Oh, was it Andrew Collier?
Collier must have had like 10 different ones on his thing.
Are we good now?
That's good. We are good right now. Bauming, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good to be with you, Hustler. The technical issues. Hey, it's like training camp, right?
Yes.
You're going to have a rusty first day, but I'm looking forward to the 2022 season. Good to be on with you and Remo talking a little bit of football. It's been a busy, conversation-filled offseason, hasn't it?
Well, it certainly has been. Hey, listen, before we get to the CFL, because I think once we get to football topics, it'll sort of take us through to the end. But a couple things. I want to just quickly get your thoughts on the Jet season because, of course, you've been covering it throughout the year as well. But first and foremost, I know you tweeted this out. The big news today that I think is going to touch every person, no matter whether what side they're on of the camera. Dennis Beyak retiring. I mean, we've been lucky enough. I mean, the two of us over the course of the years with the work back at the old station, as well as just people that just enjoy watching the games, to have had the pleasure of having Dennis with us. Huge loss, but what an incredible run Dennis has had here as the voice of the Winnipeg Jets on TSN television.
No question. His voice is synonymous with Winnipeg Jets hockey, and I know that it just resonates in the ears and the minds of Winnipeg Jets fans watching him, for over a decade now on TSN Jets, and that capping really an unbelievable hockey and broadcasting career for Dennis Beyak. So much time in amateur sport, working his way up to being a general manager in the Western Hockey League, and then going to Toronto, calling Leafs games there, and then moving back to his hometown of Winnipeg, and a little bit more freedom for him and his wife to spend off seasons out west. Where he really cut his teeth in the early parts of his career. But, we know how great he is as a broadcaster. What a lot of people don't know is how great he is as a person and a human being. I came out of college in 2011, and, with the Jets coming back and all of that excitement and activity that was covering the Winnipeg Jets, it didn't matter if I was not even yet a teammate of Dennis's, working with TSN, as we all did for so many years. Even prior to that, so friendly, so accommodating and welcoming. And, through my time working alongside Dennis, looking up to him as a mentor and just a great experienced person and kind individual. I can't say enough about, the friendship and the advice and the mentorship that he's provided me. And I've seen him provide so many other people. You just think about the careers that he has, propelled forward. You look at Shane Knighty and, being a green rookie on the air with Dennis, and then, going on to international hockey and now obviously with, our friend Gary Lawless and the Vegas Golden Knights and really just one of the best voices out there in the hockey world right now. Dennis has really his fingerprints on so many and so much in hockey. Wishing him the best. Monstrous shoes to fill. It's crazy, when you think about Bob Irving
Exactly.
on the Bombers and then Dennis Beyak on the Jets. Hockey and football and sports here in the province is going to look and sound very different, in the years ahead.
Pretty incredible changing of the guard. I mean, as much as we're talking about Dennis professionally, I can tell you he is just one of the best dudes you will ever meet. I mean,
No
it's an
question.
incredible guy to share a beer with, talk hockey, talk sports, talk life with. And anyways, we're all quite happy for him. Hey, you have been spending a lot of time on the Jets beat throughout the season. I was just talking with Darrin Millard here at the D Hotel just before we went on. Some of the guys from the Golden Knights had popped by, and I mean, if I told you that at the start of the season, with the expectations for both the Jets and the Golden Knights, that they would be out, it would be absolutely stunning. But have you enjoyed the Jets season? And just maybe quickly, your thoughts on 2 games left and the most intriguing offseason I think we've had at any point since this team came here from Atlanta.
I'll give the guys on the Winnipeg Jets and inside that locker room credit for the way they've spoken openly and critically of their season, especially over the last few days. We're going to get a chance to talk to Blake Wheeler and Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele, the guys with the letters on their chests, when they clean out their lockers on Monday. We'll hear from general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff as well, and I'm sure your viewers are going to be looking forward to you guys all breaking that down here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But the season started with so much promise and so much hope and a pretty healthy level of expectation when there were national level pundits and voices and broadcasters and writers calling for the Winnipeg Jets to be in that mix with Colorado and with St. Louis. And with those top teams in the Central Division and in the Western Conference to really be pushing for a Stanley Cup this season. You had a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. You had more semblance of normality with the Winnipeg Jets being able to play 40-plus games on home ice at Canada Life Centre, all of that momentum, a rebolstered defense, adding Schmidt and Dillon, and rounding out the roster with some other guys. It looked like everything was in place. But then came the Minnesota Wild, and they were exceeding expectations. Well, anytime you have a team, whether it's in a division or in the league, that starts to exceed expectations, there has to be other teams that are going to regress. I don't think anybody expected the Winnipeg Jets to take this far of a step back, especially considering the work they did on the back end with the roster and the work Kevin Cheveldayoff did. You look at the season, if it was 6-8 months ago and you said Kyle Connor's going to be, sniffing at 50 goals this season, do you think the Winnipeg Jets would be on the outside looking in? They'd be like, well, no, they've replaced the goal scoring, no longer there from Patrick Laine. Pierre-Luc Dubois sets a new career high in goals with 28, usurping his mark with the Columbus Blue Jackets just a few years ago, his second year in the league. You'd think the Winnipeg Jets were going to be a team to mess with. Bolstered back end, Vezina Trophy winning goaltender right behind, and offensive punch up front. It just hasn't turned out that way. Jets fans should be disappointed. They should be asking questions. We all should. You really have to wonder what Cheveldayoff and the Winnipeg Jets organization as a whole has in store this summer to right this ship and still take advantage of these ever small windows for National Hockey League teams when it comes to the salary cap, entry-level contracts, all of that, going into it's going to be a really interesting summer, Hustler.
Yeah, no doubt. There'll be an extensive autopsy on the season overall, and then we get right into it. Monday is going to be fascinating. We'll do a show specifically all around what we're hearing from members of the Winnipeg Jets, and then it'll be all eyes on presumably Kevin Cheveldayoff to see what happens in the offseason. But let's get to the pigskin. Of course, NFL draft going on tonight. We're going to talk about that with Andy Mack here in Vegas a little bit later on. But the CFL draft is next week, Darrin. But before we got to that, the CFL announced a number of rule changes yesterday. We won't go through them all, but I know you spoke about it on Twitter and have gone through them. I mean, what do fans need to know? How are things going to be different next year? And what do you think are the more significant rule changes, if any?
Well, first, credit to the Canadian Football League to continue to be an innovative league when it comes to trying to make the game better. And that said, we've heard from Mike O'Shea and Kyle Walters yesterday. We heard from Calgary Stampeders general manager John Huffnagel, head coach Dave Dickinson, in their immediate reaction since these rule changes were sent out publicly yesterday. And credit to the league and to the teams for being innovative, but keeping the essence of this great Canadian game intact. There are a number of rules. You can find all those on CFL.ca and a variety of places that kind of dig into them. But there's 2 or 3 that are the most critical. Amongst those, where teams start following kickoffs and made field goals, they'll be moved up 5 yards from where they normally are to give offenses a little bit more opportunity to take advantage of field position. The hash marks are going to be moved in, and not just a little bit. They used to be 17 yards apart. They're now going to be 9 yards apart. So much more like the National Football League and the NCAA. This is going to open up this 63.5 yard wide CFL field for so much more creativity on offense, with just the amount of room on both sides of the line of scrimmage and both sides of the tackles for receivers to be in motion, and just more opportunity for wide receivers to be involved in blocking, in misdirection, and in getting open in the passing game. It's also going to help the field goal kickers quite a bit, Hustler, and most notably here in Winnipeg. How many times do we see Ali Murtada kick the ball 50 plus yards straight as an arrow and miss it just wide to the outside.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. The minute you were describing the hashtags are moving, and I'm like, Ali Murtada is going to be 90% field goal kicker this year. One simple rule change. We don't need to worry about anything anymore. And I joke a little bit, but I mean, the guy was dead straight. There was an alignment issue getting used to the Canadian Football League, and maybe that will help. We'll talk a little bit about the kicking, but yeah, I just have to say it. I was just about to ask you about that. The first name when I read that, I'm like, oh my God, Ali Murtada is going to be so excited about this announcement.
No question. I'm sure the Lion King, as he's referred to, of course, Hakuna Murtada, his nickname, no doubt was looking up and thanking whatever powers that be, football gods above, for this rule change. But Hustler, that kind of brings us into one of the biggest off-season questions and conversation areas Blue Bomber fans are talking about. It's not Andrew Harris and what the Blue Bombers offense will look like, with Oliveira and Johnny Augustine running the ball. It's not changes on defense and Brandon Alexander still working back from injury, looking like he's going to miss a stretch of the season, definitely to get things started. And obviously lots of changes amongst defense in particular with guys going to the National Football League. It's kicker and Mark Legs, and Ali Murtada, Hakuna Murtada, the two nicknames, of course, those guys being back for 2022, and Sergio Castillo signing with Chris Jones and the Edmonton Elks this offseason. The Blue Bombers obviously weren't happy with their kicking game in 2021 prior to bringing in Sergio Castillo. We know how big he was, kicking all those field goals and really being one of the main reasons why the Blue Bombers are back-to-back Grey Cup champs. But now they're going into a training camp, starts in less than 2 weeks, believe it or not, right here in Winnipeg. And it's going to be the same guys that they felt weren't good enough for the playoffs last year. I think a year removed and a year of experience between the ears for a young kicker and young Canadian in Mark Leggio is going to help a lot. I think a year of practice and those the hash marks coming in, but just getting used to the nuances of Canadian football will help Ali Murtada. But when we asked Mike O'Shea was asked about it yesterday, Hustler, he and Kyle Walters were clear. They have not closed the door on bringing in a veteran kicker. Another leg could come as early as this week or next prior to training camp.
Well, I'm buying stock in Ali Murtada right now after the hash mark rules change.
I won't sell high, right?
And listen, I think we've seen, like last year when there was they just weren't getting the production. But I mean, it was the difference between winning by 22 points and winning by 27 at times. It wasn't as urgent, but they did know, and they correctly identified the fact that it's going to be different come playoff time. And certainly Castillo, for my money, probably was the MVP of the Grey Cup, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, he had a huge part of that game. So I will say this, as we go through what's going on at the sportsbook today ahead of the NFL draft.
Hope you're behaving yourself there, Hustler. I hope you're behaving.
Listen, I can't speak for everyone in my current vicinity right now, but we'll do that. Hey, just speaking, let's get to the draft of next week. For the Blue Bombers, being back-to-back champions, I don't think they're expecting that, any of the players that they're going to be selecting right away might be impact players right away. But we know how Kyle Walters has built this football team, and the identification of Canadian talent has been a huge part of it, and working through the draft. What intrigues you about the draft overall, as well as the Bombers' position going in as champions again?
Well, two things. Number one, you look at Canadian born and bred talent just in football across the globe right now. The talent level has never been this good. It's unbelievable how many athletes are not just in NCAA programs, but coming out of those NCAA programs and getting the attention of early mid-round picks potentially in the National Football League. You look at U Sports, it's as strong as it has ever been with the talent that they're producing, not just at those traditional positions, offensive, defensive line, receiver, linebacker, and safety, but at quarterback, at true defensive back. There's a lot of guys out there right now that are showing a football level prior to having professional level coaching or elite, truly elite level professional coaching, that they have what it takes to potentially make that jump to the next level. When it comes to the CFL draft, it's always a little bit of a crapshoot, and it always happens after the NFL draft because nobody in Canada wants to waste a high pick on a guy that ends up getting picked, in a mid or a late round in the National Football League, and he never sees Canadian soil when it comes to playing football ever again. The Blue Bombers do not have a second-round pick. They shipped that to BC in acquiring the rights to that near Grey Cup MVP in Sergio Castillo, and I'm glad you drew attention to that. With the way the wind was gusting that day, he could have easily come away with the MOP of that game. So Winnipeg will pick at number 9, being the Grey Cup champs, of course, 9th overall, and then they'll have to wait until the 20s in the third round for their next pick. I'll give Kyle Walters some credit. He's done some work this offseason. Some of those very under-the-radar free agent signings of Canadians and guys that they would normally try to target to plug in right away on special teams. They've gone out and signed those guys after 2-3 years with different teams in the CFL. So they're not going to maybe get that Kerfale Exume or that Jesse Briggs, at 20 or 25 in the draft. They're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And with the draft being top heavy and then really kind of having a shelf after the first round where the talent will kind of drop off relatively significantly, at least with guys being able to contribute right away. Smart of Winnipeg, to be savvy on the free agent waiver wire and try to acquire some of that talent. When it comes to that first round pick, though, Hustler, it's going to be interesting to see how Winnipeg approaches it. The offensive line is going to look different this year, but they do have some prospects in the pipeline. Their first-round draft pick last season, Liam Dobson, time at Maine, then Texas Tech in the NCAA. He's now signed with the USFL, so he's at least under contract for the next 2 years in the USFL, unless that league folds. Hey, we've seen it before, so it's definitely worth mentioning, right? But
possibility.
It is a possibility. So him and a couple other guys that they're kind of waiting for could potentially be here next year or the year after. So will Winnipeg do what they've always done in finding another Michael Couture, another Suk Chung, another Matthias Gosen with that late first round draft pick, like a Jeff Gray, who's expected to start on the offensive line this year? One thing Kyle Walters did say yesterday, Hustler, and this is important, they're no longer in that phase of building this franchise where they need a Matthias Gosen second overall to start on day one. They don't need a Suk Chung, who was taken second overall as well, to start on day one. They can take the best player available. They can take a guy that is maybe going to need half or 3/4 of the season to get acclimated and get their body and their mind right for professional football. So a much easier navigation of the CFL draft this season for Winnipeg than in years past.
Well, I'll tell you what, DB, there'll be some interesting fallout from, the next 3 days here in Vegas with the NFL draft and, potentially some Canadians getting selected there. And then, of course, next week we'll find out what happens with the Bombers and the rest of the Canadian Football League. And at that point, I know you'll have a bunch of content going on over at Bonfire. Hopefully maybe later on next week after the draft we can get you on and look ahead to training camp, because the one thing that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be doing at a certain point, we're going to get one of these press releases from DC that's going to have like 25 or 30 different names on it that these guys are all signed coming to camp. And the rookie camp battle is going to be fascinating. I mean, I still think back to last year when we knew there was a really good team. There had been a missed season. There were so many questions about coming out of a lost season of the pandemic. But the other thing is, I mean, they brought 35 bloody DBs to camp last year. They found a couple great ones that helped them win a championship. But there will be some guys that we haven't even heard of that potentially won't even be signed yet that'll be coming, which will make for an interesting rookie camp and main camp for the few spots that are available right now for the Blue Bombers heading into next year.
I'll quickly note Mercy Maston, who I was told by CFL GMs a year ago when he blew his knee in training camp and essentially wrote off his 2021 season, that he was all-star caliber during the Blue Bombers 2019 Grey Cup run, and somebody that is definitely overlooked. He is healthy. He is back. Mike O'Shea and Kyle Walters mentioned yesterday that he could have even been ready to play for the playoffs last season. He is an absolute stud and going to be a stalwart on this defense with the likes of Dietrich Nichols, Nick Taylor, Brandon Alexander when he's healthy and ready to go. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be, 30 DBs for, trying out to try to find a starter, but they're going to have to find a starter at defensive back who is a rookie once again. So it'll be interesting to watch. And it's unbelievable to think, Hustler, how quickly, well, maybe as how slow this winter has gone by. Now spring is here, and training camp and rookie camp getting going May 11th right here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, spring allegedly here. Apparently, Rob Zobb's got another Colorado low coming in this weekend, as long as it's not snow. But
I don't want to hear that.
God, we got to just dry this out and get out. Well, listen, I'll be back next week. Looking forward to the draft and looking forward to having you back on here on the program. And, of course, another great season of content from you over at Bonfire, us at Winnipeg Sports Talk, and to see whether the champs can go back to back to back. Have a great one, DB. Thanks for popping on.
You too, Hustler. Appreciate you, man.
Follow him on Twitter at Darrin Bauming. That's our pal Darrin Bauming. Of course, been covering the Jets all season long for NHL.com and is now getting ready to get after it with his real love. That is the 3-down game covering the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Canadian Football League. All right, Scott Billeck lined up. He's going to join us in just a second. Before we do that, hey, I talked to Pitt out at Aikens Lake yesterday. We got some great feedback. They've hired a few folks. There are still 2 spots available. They're looking for dock hands and young people to work at Aikens Lake. So if you do have, maybe a university student, someone that likes being outdoors, someone that wouldn't mind spending, 4 months in basically paradise for the summer, making some great money and working with some of the best people I've ever met. Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge has a couple of remaining spots that they're looking to fill right now. So find out more at aikenslake.com. If you are on Twitter, you can send a DM or a tweet over to Pitt Terren at Aikens Lake on Twitter and find out a little bit more about the opportunity. We will be out there later on this summer. Always maybe my best 3-4 days of the entire year. And they do have a very few limited number of openings, whether it's for a family trip or a corporate outing. And you can find out more there at aikenslake.com. But key thing right now is looking for maybe the greatest summer job ever for someone close to you, or if you're a young person that would like to get out there for a few months, get on it right now over at Aikens Lake. Hey, our friends at Culligan Water continue to be the go-to people for over 65 years in the water game in Winnipeg. It's a family-owned business, and there's a reason why they've been doing it for so long, because they're the best in the biz, and they've got it all. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, and drinking water systems, not to mention city-wide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whether it's for your home, for the cottage coming up this summer, or for your business, Culligan's there for you. See them at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180. And you can check them out online as well at drinkculligan.com. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are ready for all your battery needs heading into the summer. We got through the winter somehow, and they were busier than ever with all the battery needs for people just trying to get their damn cars started. Now, though, it's the fun stuff. Boats, maybe a hot rod you're working on, that golf cart that gets you around during the summer, whatever your battery needs are for the summer, they're ready for you. And they've extended their summer hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. so you can pop in after work and then maybe do a little work in the garage to get you ready and save some time heading into those very precious weekends. Manitoba Batteries at 1026 Logan Avenue. You can call them at 783-8787. Great way to do is call in the order. They'll have it all ready for you to go quick and easy. You can pick it up over at 1026 Logan Avenue. And hey, it's NFL draft night tonight. I should have worn my Chiefs draft hat from last year, which I think is pretty much my favorite of many, many Chiefs hats. They'll have the new draft hats coming in, and of course, all sorts of NFL merchandise ready for you if you just can't wait for the upcoming season. But it's not just the NFL. Best selection of Jets gear, Jets merchandise in the city. Tons of Bombers, as well as exclusive Grey Cup Championship hats, soccer, and more. And again, for folks that are looking to get outside and actually get active, an expanded fitness section, incredible bikes available, soccer, baseball, softball, and more. Royal Sports has it all. 750 Pembina Highway, and follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. You'll get the latest merchandise drops as well as deals, and of course some of those famous tent sales coming back this year as well. All right, let's continue the conversation. As I mentioned, Andy McNamara. I'm here at the D Hotel, Bar Canada in Las Vegas, just a little ways away from where the NFL draft is going to be happening tonight. We're going to be down at an event at the Circus Swim, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'll post some pictures up on Instagram a little later on. We do want to continue our Jets conversation with 2 games left in the season. And Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun joins us now. Scotty, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. You're at Circus Sports, eh? That's a nice place.
Listen,
That's a massive room.
I have to tell you, in all honesty, I mean, coming when you go on the road, especially now as a smaller outfit with the brains of the operation back in Winnipeg, always a little bit worried about, okay, am I going to even be able to pull this off? How is it going to work? I will tell you that this facility here at the D, this Bar Canada, the setup they have with the technology built in this table for both broadcast and things like we're doing right now, absolutely second to none. The staff has been amazing. And, I always loved coming down to Fremont and downtown before when I'd been here, but I'd stayed more on the Strip. Not anymore. I'm going to be spending way more time downtown. And as I said, for folks that have seen, and I'll suggest, as I said, I'll get some pictures tomorrow. We'll fire it up on the program. But do yourself a favor. Just Google Circus Swim, and you'll see it's the combination of the two greatest things, the day pool party and the biggest and best sports book with the screens. Anyways, it's going to be fun. So NFL draft tonight. But listen, we are finishing up this Winnipeg Jets season. Yeah. And, it's been really interesting. We'll get to the game in a minute, then last night's game. But, I mean, you're in every one of these media availabilities. And I mentioned this to Marat yesterday. I mean, I think we're all appreciative of the frank and honest nature of many of the comments we've heard from the Winnipeg Jets. There hasn't really been a lot of sugarcoating it. There haven't been excuses. There's been, I think some honest self-reflection of the club. And listen, no one, I think, expected that the team would be here, least of which the players in that dressing room. But it's already, I mean, how have you taken? I think this goes back to the miserable road trip that they had, losing all 4 games, and the comments from Stastny and Connor and Ehlers. And that was followed up this week by Neil Pionk, maybe the most frank comments of all. And not just about the team overall, but really looking in the mirror and him taking a big part of ownership for the disappointing season personally and for the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think as gloomy as some of these availabilities have been, with guys being all whatever, right, like upset and really just injecting that truth serum in, I think this is a good thing for this team because, I think back to last season and that 6-game losing streak that the Jets had near the end before they went to the playoffs. And Paul Stastny comes out and basically, I mean, that was kind of the first time where you kind of hear somebody in that room say, hey, we have a problem with the way that we play, the fact that we just think that sometimes we can mask our warts with our play and we can win games in a 3 or 4 minute stretch in the third and then everything's hunky-dory. Obviously, that sort of idea, that sort of mentality has caught up to the Jets. And I think we're seeing more and more players come out and say, like, we need to be better. I thought, Neil Pionk, I thought yesterday when Nikolai Ehlers came out and he's sitting there and we're asking him about the season and then, whatever. And the interesting thing about how these last few games have been kind of characterized by some players, Kyle Connor talked about culture building when it came to these last few games. Yesterday, Nikolai Ehlers stopped short of saying these were like a chance to say sorry to the fans, but pretty much said the same thing essentially after that, saying, we want to show them that we're better. And that's, I think the weight of this season, the last few seasons, has caught up to a lot of these guys. And it's come to a point where maybe these things were kept in-house before, or you just kind of kept your mouth shut because you didn't want to ruffle some feathers in the room or whatever. I think we're past that, right? Because these are professional athletes that are just getting sick of losing. And now it's to the point where, last season you went to the playoffs. And the season before that, I mean, it was a weird year, but you were in the bubble. And obviously they didn't make the playoff proper that year, in a sense. But, at least they were kind of in there and there was something to play for. For the last 2 weeks, there's been nothing to play for, right? I mean, and this team has been forced, during media availabilities to answer questions about a wasted season, a lost season. But these aren't words that we're using in the media. These are words that they're using. And I think that's important. I think part of that, you haven't heard it from everybody. Obviously, Mark Scheifele's been injured. He'll speak on Monday. Blake Wheeler took a different route than others. It wasn't as harsh, I suppose, as, let's say, Neil Pionk or whatever. But I think, and I think these guys know change is coming, because how could you look at this season or the last couple or even going back to the last half of the 2018-19 season and not think something's going to change this year, because it has to. Brendan Dillon yesterday said, basically said this is the definition of insanity if this team came back and just felt that they would, it was a one-off or whatever, and that would be it. I know that's been part of it too, where Dave Lowry said that, they're trying to show that this is a one-off, or it could be. I don't know if that's the case, because, obviously it's trended the wrong way for a while now, but I think it's been refreshing to have this honesty. We crave that in the media. We want players to be honest. We want them to say what's really on their mind, and they're saying that right now. And I think it's very revealing on how the leadership of this team has started to, I don't want to say change hands, but just the way that it's moving, where you got the young players, the Kyle Connors, the Pierre-Luc Dubois, the Nikolai Ehlers, guys really being honest with themselves about the season and all that stuff. So, I think that's what I've taken away from this is there's been a lot of damning indictments on this team, from motivation to culture to preparation to all that stuff. Things that obviously teams like Tampa or Florida or Colorado aren't dealing with, of course. But you have to get to that point where you recognize that stuff first before you can change, because otherwise you haven't hit rock bottom yet, right? And I think this team is at that point where it is kind of rock bottom. You're not, and some of these guys aren't getting older, and the guys that are in their prime are feeling that they're wasting their years. And you don't want that. I mean, nobody wants that around here, to see players and that sort of thing. So, I think that it's been a refreshing week, a reflecting week or two here, but also an important one for this team, that the players are taking ownership. And, now we'll see what upper management's going to do. And that's the other thing. The only thing that we don't know that's going to happen this offseason is who's coming back in the fall. Who's going to guide this team? What's the vision of this team going forward? Those are still some of the questions left to answer. But it's clear now that the players, some of them at least, most of them that have talked to us, are sick of the status quo and are looking for something different.
Let me ask you this, because, and listen, I mean, we're all speculating in our own way about, what will happen and how things will change. I mean, I think we all know that the Winnipeg Jets, overall as an organization, have had a plan, a pretty clear plan from the get-go that, was building and really seemed to be on track up until, kind of, in my opinion, the second half of the 2019 season. That team was still so good. They were able to be competitive, and, they battled back in that series. But you mentioned that losing streak at the end of the year last year. The same thing happened in 2019. And yeah. I'll never forget, and it's funny, it's a kind of a neat segue into Eric Comrie, because if I'm not mistaken, Eric Comrie started that game against the Avalanche in game 81 of 2019. You had a team that was second overall, basically midway through the season, that had been to the conference finals before, that seemed completely lost at the end of the year. And that was like, they had a closed door meeting at the end of game number 81 before going into the playoffs. And, in a way, the pandemic, the end of the 2020 season and the bubble and last year, it almost seemed like it sort of pushed everything off. And this is in some ways, to me, the reckoning that potentially could have happened at the end of 2019 if they had recognized that maybe, it seems like a lot of the things that we're talking about right now were sort of showing themselves 3 years ago, Scott. And for that reason, I think that while it might not be historically what the Winnipeg Jets do, I think we could see some real significant change. And listen, I sort of feel for Dave Lowry, because, I mean, this is a guy who's been, had 1,000 games in the National Hockey League, has been successful as a coach. He kind of came up here, and this was such a great opportunity, but without any real turnaround in the results of the hockey club and where the organization is. We can't forget, for the first time ever, really needing to sort of sell itself to the fans and to earn it. I mean, very difficult to come back. I mean, how significant do you think the changes might be within the core of this team and obviously coaching staff? Because as I mentioned, I mean, even if the plan all along was to have Dave Lowry be the guy, I think there's a number of things conspiring off the ice that might make that very difficult, even if that was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Dave Lowry was handed a raw deal. And don't get me wrong, every coach that's hired mid-season after a firing is handed a raw deal. The teams are bad. That's what happens when that happens.
There's a reason they're getting the opportunity at that point.
And so yeah, the reason why I have a bit more sympathy for Dave Lowry is that he was handed a team that, for like we've talked about here, has been sinking for years. It's not just that this team had a bad year this year. There was a lot that needed to change in this team, and it's not just coaching staff, because we've seen that, right? You change. There was no coaches bump here, none of that. It's the same. I don't want to. Yeah, it's the same stuff that's been going on for a while now, right? And so, but that, at the same time, as Dave Lowry would say about his players, you get an opportunity, you either have to run with it or you don't get it, or you miss out on it, right? This has been Dave Lowry's opportunity. I'm not saying he hasn't done some good. I'm also not saying he hasn't avoided some bad too. And that's sort of the thing. I don't think he's done enough here to kind of warrant bring him back next season, because the problem with this team is that it requires a lot of change. I don't believe Dave Lowry when he says, they can just kind of pull up their bootstraps and come back to next year and whatever, because here's the thing about the pandemic and all that stuff. Yeah, that threw a wrench into a lot of teams, a lot of things. Everybody's dealt with it in the same way. Every team has had players out. They've had injuries throughout it. They dealt with the same crappy schedules, all that stuff. Good teams got through that, right? Good teams made their way through that. The Tampa Bay Lightning won 2 straight Stanley Cups in maybe some of the most chaotic seasons in NHL history in terms of just, the worst state of the world. And they're still good this year too, again, when it's some semblance of normalcy. The Jets just haven't really, they've been stagnant, and then this year it kind of got worse. And like you said, I think that's part of it. It kind of, it made it so this team was, you could almost overlook it because, we can blame the pandemic or we can blame whatever. Well, these excuses just keep adding up until you kind of run out of them. And so, yeah, I see major changes here. I don't know what that looks like just yet. Obviously, coaching staff, as you said, I think the only one that's safe on that coaching staff is Wade Flaherty. I think the relationship that he has with Connor Hellebuck and Eric Comrie, you don't mess with that, because that's your number one goaltender and that's your backup goaltender. And likely that Eric Comrie is probably back here again next season. You don't mess with something that's working there. But everything else, is up for grabs, right? And I think, you need a coach in here that is different. It's not somebody from within the organization. It's not an assistant coach. You need somebody to come in here that has a fresh view on things. When you would do an audit or something like that, you don't get it done internally. You want somebody from the outside to come in so they have a fresh set of eyes with no biases and all that stuff. That's what the Jets need to do. Does that affect Kevin Cheveldayoff? I'm not sure. This is a team, Mark Chipman. We saw the defense of Mark Chipman when the Kyle Beach stuff came out of Kevin Cheveldayoff. Can you just go and then fire him at the end of this season after that? I'm not so sure about that. And so I'm not sure where Kevin Cheveldayoff's job kind of stands. I don't know what the vision of this team is, though, right? It has been draft and develop, all that stuff, but it hasn't gotten them to where they wanted to be. And yeah, we can say they went to the Western Conference Final 4 years ago now. It hasn't translated to anything more than that. And that was a one-off. If you want to talk about one-offs, that was a one-off too, just like this season could be viewed as a one-off. And then players. We've all seen it from Mark Scheifele. Can a new coach come in here and reinvigorate him? What are you going to do with Blake Wheeler? Is it time to maybe move on from Blake Wheeler and try and look at different? How do you move on from Blake Wheeler?
Yeah, to me that's a non-starter. We hear that all the time. First and foremost,
right.
There's a no-move contract in the contract. So unless he wants to do that,
right.
That's not even on the table. And listen, this goes back to conversations we've had all year. Listen, I know some people in the chat have thought that I've sort of been picking on Mark Scheifele, and hey, listen, he's a very important part of the player, part of the hockey club, and there's been a lot of parts of his game that, for a leader and for your number one center, haven't been cutting it, and I think it has had a detrimental effect, not just on the team, but a lot of the things that we've talked about come back to that. And listen, we're not hanging it on him, but if you're looking at this group right now and you're thinking, how do we make a significant change of a piece that comes back and can bring you some significant value? All all roads lead to 55. I mean, are you moving on from Connor? Hell no. Nikolai Ehlers? Definitely not. Pierre-Luc Dubois is the biggest priority to get him signed for this offseason. And here's the thing. When Mark Scheifele's contract is up in 2 years, he'll be 31 years old.
And you're not resigning.
Well, and if you wanted to, I mean, the cost is going to be considerably higher based on his offensive production over the course of the years. Yeah. So, I mean, if you are thinking about making a move that affects the culture of the team, the core of the team, the leadership group, I mean, it's every single check. And let's not forget, from a general manager's perspective, you have a player that has proven himself as an elite offensive player in the league. And there'd be a lot of teams, I think, that, would bring him in knowing that you'd have 2 years at very good value to add to potentially another really good team that maybe he doesn't have to be that number one guy and puts him in a position to succeed. And I'm very interested to hear what we get out of Mark Scheifele on Monday because, to be honest with you, Scott, I mean, outside of all that stuff, which speaks to the opportunities for the Winnipeg Jets if they made that move, I'm not sure there's a guy in that dressing room that could maybe use a change of scenery more than Mark Scheifele himself. I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that he would like as well.
And I agree, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that at some point too. I mean, one of the questions of Mark Scheifele on Monday is going to be, do you want to be here, Mark? I mean, that's going to be one of the questions because it seemed at times this year that he's indifferent to playing the game the way that it needs to be played. And that's in stark contrast to some of the guys that have been out there this year, the Kyle Connors, the Nikolai Ehlers, the Pierre-Luc Dubois, who are playing a certain style of hockey that let's, for lack of a better term, shows effort on the ice. And, I get that people think that we're all bashing on Mark Scheifele. And the one thing with Mark Scheifele is, as poor as some of us may have think that he's played this year, he's still a point-per-game player. And that's the crazy part about Mark Scheifele, is he could be so much better if he played. Because if he played defense, I don't think his point totals matter. They matter, but I think that they're not going to be effective is what I'm trying to say. And I think Mark Scheifele could be, for the lack of a better term, rehabilitated here. But I don't know if he ever caught on to Dave Lowry's message. I'm very curious to know how much, one, the Olympics going away affected Mark Scheifele, and two, the Paul Maurice walking out on the team affected Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler.
Hey, let's back up a little bit. I mean, hey, listen, I'm the first one to say, I mean, go back to the shows. I mean, I was incredibly high on Scheifele going into this season.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taking him on the props, on the over. I mean, I thought he was a player. And this is part of the disappointment of the season, especially when you look at that first half of the year. And I know he had COVID, and who knows, maybe there was more things behind the scenes that we didn't see. But I expected to see the most motivated and driven Mark Scheifele we'd ever seen this year because of exactly what you'd said.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, Scott, the Olympics being canceled might have been the best thing that happened to Mark Scheifele, because I think for all the hopes and expectations that he had of being on that team, from the way he played at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he played himself out of the conversation. So, I mean, all of that adds to the questions about the year that he specifically had and his future in Winnipeg. And it all goes back to, what we've been talking about with some major decisions, and if you are shaking up that core. Because, a lot of people say, oh, we'll just move Blake Wheeler. Well, guess what, folks? I mean, in addition to the no move, I mean, I really do think that Blake Wheeler can be part of the solution here. I think that Blake Wheeler is going to buy into, if there's a new coach, to a new message. I mean, and I assume that he'll probably still have the C, but I think any coach is going to come in is going to want to elevate the level of some of those other players that we've been mentioning to part of that leadership group. And whether they have letters on their chest or not, to me is almost irrelevant. To have more guys be part of that group as opposed to have the leader and the leadership group and then everybody else expected to just follow the way that they go about it.
Yeah, and I would argue that Blake Wheeler's best hockey this season has come without Mark Scheifele at center with him.
Yes,
right?
The answer to that is yes.
And so if you're a new coach coming in, or if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, I mean, I guess the argument is there, but you need both of those guys, I suppose, on board with the schism, right? Like, It seems over the last years like it was almost like this team reluctantly would move these guys away from each other. Well, it didn't seem. It just was that way. But when they were moved, like Blake Wheeler, some of Blake Wheeler's best hockey when Mark Scheifele was out injured in 2017-18 was when Blake Wheeler was playing by himself on center. He wasn't playing by himself, but you know what I mean. He was on without Mark Scheifele. Those two guys are so comfortable with each other that I'm not sure it was beneficial to the team anymore. Yeah, they put up a ton of points together. Blake Wheeler's best 2 seasons, 91-point years, can be attributed to playing with Mark Scheifele. But was it best for the hockey team to always keep those two together? And I'm not sure, especially when you have a guy that like Nikolai Ehlers or Patrick Laine before him, that you would rather have seen that those two kind of do that and have Blake in a different role, especially in the last couple of years where Father Time is starting to catch up with Blake Wheeler. But it's always been, let's just go back to Mark and Blake, blah, blah, blah. But now that you've had Blake with Mark out injured and Blake playing on a line with Dubois or whoever it's been, it's worked out for Blake, and he seems to be, I don't want to say free because I don't think he would agree with that, but at the same time, it's just almost like there's a relief. Relief isn't either. I don't know what the right word is, but it's almost been like, it's been this just kind of freeing moment for Blake Wheeler where he can play. So,
I think there's been an honest acceptance of what's happened,
sure.
Where this team was, where the team is right now. And obviously knowing that things do need to change. Quickly, last night, let's talk Eric Comrie for a minute. And I know we've got a clip, and maybe we'll play that in a couple minutes when we finish this up. I gave everyone the opportunity in the chat to own their freezing cold takes at the start of the year with all the worries about Eric Comrie. All he's done is done the job when he's been asked all season long. And listen, there wasn't a lot to get out of these final few games, but I will say this, just on a human level, to see Eric have the season that he's had with the sort of person that he is has been a great story. And for him to get that first NHL shutout last night, I mean, you wouldn't think that you could possibly be nervous up 3 goals with 3 minutes left in the game when Philly gets that power play. But I think everyone watching the game, and certainly everyone in the building, knew it was at stake. And it was just awesome to see him get that result last night. And you can see how beloved he is by his teammates, by the reaction to that. One of the few real bright lights of this season, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching from the press box, and the biggest thing about that whole game was that the biggest test, as you said, as you mentioned, there was that late power play as Josh Morrissey took a penalty there. And it's not like Philadelphia. Like, Philadelphia's in a bad spot, and they're not making the playoffs and tough, but they're trying to get a goal here, right? Like, they don't want to get shut out by a backup, and they put 7 shots on Eric Comrie, and Eric Comrie makes every single one of those saves, and none of them looked like he was really sprawling or desperate or anything. He was locked on, right? I said at the beginning of the season, I wrote in my predictions, whatever, and these are all, we always get these wrong when we do them. I don't know why we do them, because it just makes us look like complete idiots. I said the Jets would be looking for a backup goalie, someone like Anton Forsberg or whatever, by American Thanksgiving. And I couldn't have been further from the truth, right? Like, I couldn't have been more wrong with that. And I'll eat it because, the thing with Eric Comrie was he was coming into the year as the backup because of cap situations. They had him at league minimum and all that stuff, right? So that was good, but he was so unproven in the NHL. It's not like he had these great starts and all that kind of stuff when he was with New Jersey or Detroit. He never played a game for Arizona. All that stuff, right? He just never stood out. But in training camp, he did play well. But in the games that he played, they weren't that great. I don't think Eric Comrie, after training camp, after preseason action, proved that he was capable of doing this. But he did over the season and when it mattered. When Connor Hellebuyck was struggling, or when Connor Hellebuyck was out sick, or when Connor Hellebuyck had his child, had his son, all of those things, Eric Comrie was just waiting for this opportunity, and he took it, and he ran with it, and he amassed this great save percentage. He amassed this great goals against average. He's got a 9-5-1 record now. He has his first NHL shutout. Nobody. I mean, stand up and be counted, and you're a liar if you thought Eric Comrie was going to have as good of a season as he did. Because, the Jets had sort of been spoiled in the last couple of years with Laurent Brossoit and how good he had played at times and that sort of thing. But Laurent Brossoit priced himself out of this town, and you were left with Eric Comrie or who knows what. And that was the thing. We talked about all the things that we got wrong. We talked about how good this forward group was going to look, how great the defense was becoming because of the additions. The question mark going into the season was, how was the backup role and how many games was Connor Hellebuyck going to have to play? And it came to a point now where we're talking about Eric Comrie should have played more games, because he played so well and he earned that. And we didn't, and the Jets didn't need to play Connor Hellebuyck as much as they did. And so, I think, it's great for Eric. I mean, here's a salt of the earth guy. I remember we were in Seattle, and this is a little thing. I don't know how much time we have, but we're in Seattle. Me and Mike McIntyre go to dinner at, I think it's called Shaker and Spear. And we sit down next to Brendan Kitchen, the Moose strength and conditioning coach, and Eric Comrie. And we're at the next table. And I would imagine that most players don't want to sit next to two media members, at a dinner out with their buddies or whatever. But Eric Comrie is just like the nicest dude, right? And he says, hi, whatever, how are you guys doing? All that stuff, made some quips during the meal, all that sort of thing, right? Like, it's the type of player where, like, we're not supposed to cheer as fans, or as media members, but, you want to see this guy do well because of how authentic he is, how genuine of a good person he is on and off the ice. It's not like this switches off after he's out of the media, or if you see him out town. Like, this is a guy, I'll say this about Adam Lowry too, the same sort of thing. You see Adam Lowry, he'll say hi, he'll chat with you, he'll do whatever. It's just a certain type of player, a certain type of human being that does that. And so, when the guy has success, whether it's here in Winnipeg or, in Florida or whoever, I mean, these are the guys that you like to see have some success, and especially after what Comrie had been through in the last couple of years, all over the NHL with all these teams on waiver wires, taxi squad, pretty much all of last year. That's a tough go, and then for him to finally get his opportunity and run with it, it's a great story at the end of the year, and that's kind of what you're searching for as a storyteller, as a reporter at the end of the year when there's nothing else. You're not dissecting special teams or defensive pairings or whatever. The season's over. I mean, you want to see a good story. You want to write about a good story. And I think Eric Comrie has been that kind of, I don't even want to call it silver lining in a bad year because they're not the same things, but he's just been a good story. And it couldn't probably happen to a better person, giving where that guy comes from and all that stuff. Nobody is as humble, in my opinion, as Eric Comrie, and nobody works harder. I mean, fans don't get to see this, but man, this is the first guy out on the ice, and he will play until the other guys drop, and he'll still be ready to go. And that's the craziest thing about Eric Comrie is he's just so driven to be good.
It's you know what, you're bang on that, and I will say this, and we had many conversations at the beginning of the year, and I mean the one thing that I'd said about this, and we kind of went through his starts before with the Winnipeg Jets game by game, like he could not have been served a bigger shit sandwich by his teammates at times when he started those spot starts early in the career with the way the team played in front of him, including that game that I mentioned. And sometimes it's important, whether it be for players, for coaches, to give people a chance, a legitimate chance, and he got it this year, and he made the most of it. Scott, this has been an awesome conversation. Going to be a very interesting day Monday. I know you'll be all over it in the Winnipeg Sun, and hopefully maybe after Monday, as we get into the playoffs, we can get you back on. We'll get your thoughts on what we hear from the Winnipeg Jets and a little thought on the 16 teams that will be competing for the Stanley Cup. Thanks as always, buddy. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. And shout out to Dennis Beyak. I'm sure you've heard the news.
We were talking about, I meant to mention that to you off the bat.
Just shout out to Dennis. Great person, obviously legendary in the booth, but like the most humble, nicest guy out of it. I mean, it's a sad day, but also happy for Dennis that, the workload will be off of him and can spend more time with his wife and on the golf course, of course. Just wanted to shout out Dennis there. And, I'm sure it's an emotional day for him today, and the next 2 games that he gets to call are going to be emotional. And I hope the fans show up and show him support, because some of the best calls over the last 11 years. I mean, I'll go back to the Laine call when Laine scored in overtime for the hat trick, and the scores, Patrick Laine. I've walked out of the arena so many times, and they have a little TV in the second floor, and you can hear it, and you just hear that over and over again. And then the whole bang bang thing, little Beyak-isms and stuff. So I just hope fans appreciate what Dennis has done. To the end, he would sit behind us in scrums, take notes, ask questions, always like consummate professional, prepared to the nth degree. And that never waned. I've been here since the the third season that the Jets came back. And I've never seen a guy, he works so hard, so nice on the road. I mean, great guy.
He's the best.
Great guy.
He's the best. He's been so great to all of us, and it'll be a big loss. And as we mentioned, we had the same conversation when Bob Irving stepped away about the size 22s that now Derek Taylor's going to be stepping into. Yeah. It'll be the same thing in the TSN Jets broadcast next season. Scotty, be well. Enjoy the weekend. These final couple games. We'll catch up next week.
For sure. Yeah, appreciate it, Huss. Thanks.
Great stuff. There's Scott Billeck. All right, Andy Mack's going to join us in just a second. We will hear from Eric Comrie in just a moment. So, Remis, if you want to get that ready, I do want to thank our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. Yeah, we're going to get another Colorado low. Yeah, another 40 millimeters of rain or whatever. Golf season is coming. It's not a rumor, everybody. And listen, if you're looking for an incredible spot for the golfing future for you and your family, I don't think there's any better spot than Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. Incredible improvements to the course over the last couple of years through the pandemic, through the clubhouse patio as well, and renowned for their incredible junior program, ladies golf programs, and of course amazing men's nights and more. Find out more about the Breezy Bend waiting list right now with Corey Johnson over at Breezy Bend, and you can also find out more online at breezybend.ca. Shout out to our friends at Knott Auto Corp. I know Trev's going to be watching the draft, but the Raptors Game 6 tonight. He was out there for Game 4, but we'll be back. The Knott team, though, is ready for summer. If you're looking for a new vehicle, whether it be electric like a Tesla or a traditional vehicle, why not get into the car of your dreams at Knott Auto Corp? Go visit them at Waverly and McGilvery, or you can find out more online at knott.ca. And again, a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug. Fellow award winners on Saturday night as the best local beer at the Winnipeg Nightlife Awards. You can pick up that great taste at $19.19 at fine bars and restaurants throughout the city. You can grab all the great Little Brown Jug offerings at your local beer store, but the best place to do it is down at the Brewery and Tap Room on William Avenue. And, of course, you can order online as well. If you're not able to make it down, they deliver Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and you can order at littlebrownjug.ca. All right, just about ready to bring in Andy McNamara, but as we've been talking about Eric Comrie, who had his first shutout last night, let's quickly hear from the goaltender after last night's game, along with Kyle Connor post-game.
To secure that first NHL shutout.
Feels really good. It's a happy moment for myself, but I mean, a lot of hard work went into that, but a lot of hard work with the guys played tonight. They played a fantastic game, and they made it really easy for myself to see the puck and just make a lot of easy saves because they were playing as good as they could tonight.
What does it mean to help Eric get that first career shutout?
Yeah, like you said, we're all happy for him. He's the type of teammate that you cheer for every single day. You see it in practices. I'm sure you guys watch it all the time. He's always one of the last ones to come off, putting in all the work. So it's pretty cool to see it pay off.
Flipping the script, Eric, what's it like to see Kyle set a Jets 2.0 points record with 92?
It's fantastic. I knew it was going to happen because I don't really stop him in practice, and no one stops him in practice, so you know it's going to come. I mean, he's too good of a shooter, too good of a passer. He makes too many plays. I'm happy for him. I'm proud for him. He comes out and shoots on me all the time and gets better and hurts my confidence, so I'm glad he's doing the other goalies too.
Eric was April 27th, 2022, the night you've been dreaming of since you were a kid, strapping on the skates the first time in your life?
I don't know. There's a lot of moments you dream of. I don't think it's much I dream as much as my first game, my first win. It's definitely up there for sure, but I mean, the big dream you always have is you always have yourself winning the Stanley Cup, and that's what I've always dreamed of since I was a little kid. And that's still the ultimate goal. I mean, this is an awesome moment, but I mean, I always dreamt of raising Stanley Cup over my head, and that's always been my goal since I was a little kid.
All right, there's Eric Comrie of the Winnipeg Jets. Folks, we are, of course, live here in Las Vegas at Bar Canada at the D Hotel. The first round of the NFL draft is tonight, and one of the best parts of getting down here is being able to hook up with my good buddy, Andy McNamara, live with us here for the first time. Andy, welcome.
Too sweet, brother.
It is too sweet having you here. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's great to see you. We were hanging out a little last night. You know, a couple bevies, having a good time. Hung out with Austin Eckler a little bit.
Yeah, special guest. That was, that
this is what I do.
This is what you do. Folks, check out the Winnipeg Sports Talk Instagram feed. By the way, you should be following us on all socials as well, regardless. There is a Moose ticket contest up there as well, which we'll do the tickets for tomorrow. And we'll also be able to do some tickets for the Ice, who, of course, will have a Game 5 against the PA Raiders after dropping the game last night 3-1. So Game 5 is a go for the Ice. Stay tuned to Winnipeg Sports Talk for your chance to win tickets as well, or get to the Ice website and count yourself in. But yes, so we were here at Bar Canada last night. I finished up the show. You got in yesterday.
Right.
There's going to be a little event here for the UFF, and we'll talk about what you're doing with that organization for folks that aren't aware. And yeah, special guest star at the table last night, the fantasy god himself, Austin Eckler. Listen, that was a really, really cool little moment. And
that was neat.
What a impressive young man. We've just spending a lot of time talking about Eric Comrie, who's certain that way for the Winnipeg Jets. But as a superstar in the National Football League, I don't think this guy could have been more down to earth and real. I had time for everybody last night, and
photos, chat,
heck of a great way to start off these next few days.
Well, I wanted to surprise you because I'd been talking to his media rep and all that, and I was like, okay, until a guy shows up, they haven't shown up, right? So you want to make sure. Then he shows up, and I'm like, hey, Huss, you want to meet Austin? Like, what? And yeah, super cool guy, no ego. He was tremendous. He was absolutely tremendous. He's big on Twitch as well. And he was very cool. He's going to be getting involved with some of our UFFSports stuff, so got to have a chat with him. And yeah, took a bunch of pictures. So a great start to this draft.
Well, and it was neat because, he was so interested in the UFF and how it sort of works. And then when, you introduced him to me, was wondering about, the content game now that we're sort of doing things independently.
Yep.
And anyways, it was a really neat. Overall, though, it is the National Football League draft right now, but you, of course, and UFFSports, big presence here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Big event coming here. You've got the college. Just fill people in quickly because we're going to start talking about the draft and teams. It'll go a long time. Let's talk a little bit quickly about what you're doing and the group right now as you continue to grow and get into more angles of what really is a groundbreaking style of fantasy sports.
Yeah, it's professional fantasy sports. That's really what it is. And one of the reasons you're here at Bar Canada at the D is because the owner, Derek Stevens of the Circa, the D, and Golden Gate.
Just got a chance to meet him right before I went on the show today.
Nice.
He was hanging around. Well, big Winnipeg Sports Talk fan. Just wanted to be here for the show. Check it all out.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's invested in a whole bunch of leagues, and that's why this is sort of our home base. So we're doing the Ultimate College Fantasy Football League. So we already have our NFL equivalent. We have our Legends League, our esports that runs now every week on Twitch. You can follow those on social media also at the AFLL.
And you get to hear Andy, the human bottle of 5-hour energy, call the games as well.
There's a little extra punch when I get a little when the Browns are going, and when Jim Brown's chugging on the esports. But we're doing the college side, so this kind of completes our fantasy ecosystem, where you're building out a 31-player roster. So there's a 31-round draft. You got offense, defense, offensive line, all that good stuff. And then what you're doing, Huss, is you're really creating and running this team like it's like a real college team. So it's a great opportunity for anybody who thinks, hey, you know what? I could do better than these guys. I could do better than this program or this team. You can actually do it. And it's all working in as well, the blockchain, crypto, NFT franchise token. So the equivalent is, the Green Bay Packers who, they're like, hey, you want to share? And you're like, yeah. I was like, what's that get you? Nothing. You get to put it up on your wall.
You get to say that you're an owner of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And now, do you get some of the revenue share from the TV deal? No, you don't. But with ours, what is happening, it's the NFT franchise token. So you're going to be able to sell NFT shares and actually give prizes, rewards, build around your franchise. So a revenue earner as well as the prize. So it's going to be tons of fun. You can go right now, check it out, UFFSports.com. And then all the directions there. Just click register, $500 again, and you're in.
Yeah, and of course, you can check out Andy. Make sure you give him a follow at AndyMC81 on Twitter, and he'll boost a lot of that stuff, and you can find out more about it. So we're here. Tonight's the night. 32 names are going to be called. Not 32 teams picking, a number of teams with multiple picks, including my Chiefs at the bottom of the draft. Yeah. The 2 New York teams to double picks early in the draft. But I will say this, Andy. I mean, we've covered this for a long time, and just being fans, I mean, you're sort of draft nerds. Yeah. This is a different draft than I can ever remember before. Yeah. I mean, the quarterback talent doesn't seem to be of the true elite level that gets the QBs picked at the top of the draft. It's about linemen. It's about edge rushers. And because of the uncertainty of it, I would say this is almost as wide open of a first round as we've maybe seen in recent NFL history.
Yeah, and super deep at wide receiver. Again, this is about the third year where you're going to be able to get stud starters in the second round. Remember DK Metcalf? That was a second-round pick.
Yeah, we all remember DK Metcalf. Listen, we talked about people owning bad takes with Eric Comrie earlier today from the beginning of the season. I was not part of that group. I am certainly part of the DK Metcalf group. I was giving you a hard time saying this guy was going to be the biggest draft bust. Everyone's falling in love with him because of his great thing. You did, and he's turned into an incredible specimen, albeit I don't know who's going to be throwing the football this year. That's a different story.
Could be answered tonight.
Well, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, we'll get to a couple of the categories of the draft in a minute. But for people that are interested, might not be thinking about the actual or knowing about the players that are being selected, there's a couple huge stories around the draft. And we'll talk Deebo Samuel because he's been the number one name. But let's talk about your Browns for a minute. You know, they spend all that draft capital to get Deshaun Watson to come in. Baker Mayfield is still property of the Browns. Fill us in on that situation. And do you expect Baker Mayfield to still be a property of the Cleveland Browns by the time we get to round 2 tomorrow?
I think it all depends what the Carolina Panthers do at 6. I think that will tell the story. And as long as they don't trade back up or anything. Because the Carolina Panthers, they have the 6th pick. Then they don't pick again, I think, till it's like 127. Something much later.
Yeah, they don't pick again to the 4th round.
So if you want a quarterback, you're getting him at 6 or you're not getting him. And if they do not take a quarterback, then all the dots are connecting him and Baker Mayfield, or the Panthers and Baker Mayfield, which is kind of funny because you'll have the 2 of the top 3 picks of the 2018 draft, him and Sam Darnold, old dead eyes himself on the same team. I think Baker can still do it in the league. I think he got, honestly, a bad rap.
I do too.
I got a bad rap. The dude won a playoff game, and he beat Pittsburgh twice in a row, and then he busted up his shoulder, and they didn't take him out.
He played injured all last season. It was so obvious. And I mean, at some point, I mean, I wondered in the logic of continuing to throw him out. And listen, we know the way these athletes are wired, especially quarterbacks, leaders. I mean, they have to be tough. They have to play through a lot. But I don't think it did the Cleveland Browns any service, and it certainly didn't for Baker Mayfield. And you know, for the way that this is all shaken down, I understand they believe in Deshaun Watson. They had the opportunity to get him despite everything that's happened off the field, and they made the big swing and they got it done.
They made a splash, just like the draft day movie. Made a splash.
Worst movie of all time.
Such a good movie.
But I will say this. I do think that I think Baker Mayfield can win football games.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we were 1 year away from him going in and beating the crap out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tell me that didn't mean something to Browns fans, long-suffering Browns fans.
Hustler, I have, and you know what? If I would have thought I would have wore the shirt here because I have it. I bought the place called Cleveland Maserati because Colin Cowherd called Baker Mayfield a Mazda. He's not a Mazda. He's a Mazda. And so they called the play that got the Browns to the playoffs because they beat Pittsburgh 2 weeks in a row. Last week. So the play was a Baker Mayfield sweep. So I actually have a shirt that's called Cleveland Maserati, and with like the helmets, the design play. You know how they have like the little loops and da-da-da-da-da. So I have the Cleveland Maserati shirt. That meant everything. And remember too, Baker Mayfield came in on that Thursday night when the Browns hadn't won the game in how many days? The beer fridge is open. I will always have a soft spot for Baker Mayfield. I think he did tremendous work, and you know his attitude caught up with him with the injury. He got frustrated. I feel that because this front office did not draft Baker, that was John Dorsey. So his coach wasn't there. The GM wasn't there. This really seemed to me like they wanted an excuse to get Baker out. And let's face it, if you look at pure talent, no matter how much I love my Baker, pure talent, only football, Deshaun Watson's an elite quarterback. He just is.
No.
He's a better QB. I can't deny it.
It's fascinating, and I'm not sure what because the rest of the league has sort of weighted the Browns out. I mean, for a guy that was picked number 1 overall and is still under contract.
$18.85 mil guarantee, and they said that's a lot of the reason. But, so it comes down to what team, how much are the Browns going to eat salary-wise, and what do you get back? If you eat most of it, maybe you get a third. If you eat a little bit, maybe you get like a sixth.
Yeah, they're certainly not trading from a position of strength.
No.
But I will say this. I think who does take a chance on Baker, whether it is the Panthers. I mean, if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, considering what I'm looking at my quarterback depth chart right now, I don't know what their cap situation is, but the fact that Russell Wilson's gone, certainly you'd assume that they'd have some room. I would certainly consider Baker Mayfield because I think in Act 2, he always kind of played like he had a chip on his shoulder to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
Just imagine how big that chip is going to be wherever he continues his National Football League career.
He would fit perfectly with Seattle because look who you have on that roster. You got Drew Lock. Come on.
Oh.
You got Geno Smith. Stop. You're telling me a 70, how old's Pete Carroll? 73, 72, 71, whatever? You're telling me that guy wants a full rebuild? I don't think so. You're doing something. So either, again, I think it comes down to what they do in the draft. Who's available? Malik Willis would make a lot of sense skill set-wise in Seattle. Now, I don't think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I don't. But that skill set makes a lot of sense. Do the Seattle Seahawks take a quarterback? It comes down to really, to me, again, Carolina and Seattle in the draft. If one or neither takes it, Baker, I believe, goes to one of those spots in some sort of creative deal. Browns the X amount of salary, and then you get it done.
The other most intriguing name going into tonight's draft is Deebo Samuel. You had the big Devontae Adams trade from the Packers to the Raiders, new contract. You had Tyreek Hill. I'm still somewhat stunned that it happened, to be honest. I mean, Tyreek, Mahomes, and Kelsey were sort of the holy trinity of the most high-powered offense in recent NFL history. And, but, at the end, if you're paying all these guys, there is a cap. And if your receiver is deserving of a $25 million deal, it's not easy to pull off. And that's why the Chiefs are picking twice late in the first round. But Deebo Samuel, I mean, for Kyle Shanahan's offense in the San Francisco 49ers was an absolute linchpin to everything they've done. And when you think about it, I mean, they were never getting truly elite quarterback play. And I'm not sure that they can count on that, whether it's Jimmy G or Trey Lance next year. But the brilliance of Shanahan's offensive mind allowed them in very creative ways to get the ball into Deebo's hands, and we saw what the results were. All that being said, I mean, we're now in a similar situation. The Tyreek Hill thing happened in like a day. This has dragged on quite a bit, and I was hearing some reports last night what's kind of making this more difficult. Even if they got to the point where they thought they had a deal, there's the physical for teams. I mean, how are you going to be able to get a physical done before the beginning of the first round tonight?
Right.
That's an issue. And on top of it all, you also have to get a contract done because Deebo Samuel's not going anywhere on the deal that he's playing with right now. So
second round pick money. Remember that, right? Like for the production, that guy put out 14 total touchdowns last year, 8 rushing, 6 receiving, 1,400 plus yards through the air. This guy's, I think we just have to call him a weapon, Huss. He's a weapon. And San Francisco's getting a hell of a bargain on that second round money. So I don't blame Deebo. Look, the shelf life, you're one torn ACL away from not getting that contract. So I don't blame him. Dude's a heck of a talent. And you can mix and match him anywhere, and especially what he was able to do in San Francisco with all those injuries last year. To the running backs, it seems like the last 3 years it's just been a carousel of injuries for the 49ers. So you should be able to get a nice haul for Deebo Samuel. You should. And then you look at like your Chiefs, like you said, with Tyreek Hill going, well, now you got 2 picks. Do they use both picks? Do they bundle the trade up? There's a lot of good receivers in this draft class. It should be Green Bay and Kansas City should, no matter what, be getting a wide receiver in the first round.
Oh, and I think they will.
What.
And listen, I mean, unless there is a guy that they think is clearly better than everybody else, which I'm not really sure that will be the case. And again, depending on how things go, because there's a lot of teams that want to trade down. I think with the depth and the lack of certainty and, how many guys that are in that conversation, listen, from my perspective as a Chiefs fan, I hope they don't trade up. I hope they wait, and I hope they make those 2 selections at the end of the first round. They have the opportunity for the 5th-year contract, the 5th-year deal. The one thing I will say from a Chiefs perspective, and picking at 29 and 30, and, if there is a team that is looking at a quarterback that they think that is maybe not first round value, a first rounder, but know that they're going to need to get him at that point. You potentially trade out of that, say, the 30 spot into early in the second round and acquire some more draft capital or potentially a player and allow a team to pick a quarterback at that point. Because the one thing, if you hit on that quarterback, having the fifth-year option is massive. And there's a reason why Lamar Jackson went at number 32, Teddy Bridgewater went at number 32. It is the risk-reward, but the reward of having a first-rounder with that extra year of term is so significant when it comes specifically to the quarterback position. And I think that's a possibility for the Chiefs to do it, because I will say this, the Detroit Lions are picking 32. They've got the Rams selection. I don't think Jared Goff is the long-term quarterback for them. So, if say a Kenny Pickett is around at the end of the first round, I think there's a lot of people that would think that is what Detroit does at 32. So maybe you've got one of those teams like the Bengals, like the Chiefs, just before Detroit, that could be a perfect spot for a team to trade up to get that quarterback at the end of the first round and maintain first-round rights with the fifth-year option.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And really, it's going to be fascinating. Who's the first quarterback that goes and where? Because we could see some tumbling, right? Like we said, sort of that first mark is Carolina at 6. Now, I technically you should say it should be Houston at 3. They seem to like Davis Mills, and maybe if they don't like if they aren't in love with a quarterback this year, you take a stud in another position.
Is there any quarterback that's good enough to be picked in the top 10?
I think because teams are quarterback thirsty, one will, but talent-wise, I don't think so. I don't believe so. Kenny Pickett, little baby hands, right? Poor Kenny.
Small hands.
Because those 8-inch hands, you have to hand him a cup of coffee very carefully. He doesn't drop it, right? Just.
Has anyone ever been right about those terrible takes? Oh, he just doesn't have enough the wingspan, the hand size of the quarterback.
It's so dumb. You just make him seem like he's like some little Is it Kenny Pickett, who I think is this year's sort of Mac Jones? Highest floor, lowest ceiling. Most NFL ready is Kenny Pickett. You can put Kenny Pickett into a New England type situation. He can go out. That dude could probably win you 8 games. Now, can he ever elevate higher than that? I doubt it. You have Sam Howell, who was talked about. That dude's too small, and he's 6 feet and change, and he's the arm talent. Everybody gives off average vibes to me in this Huss. Now you have traits that are elite, but when you factor everything in, they're average. Malik Willis. Now the competition you take for what it is, okay, but his accuracy is no good. He's not as fast as Lamar Jackson, and he's only 6 feet 2 as well, 6 feet as well. So where does it come in? I'll tell you one guy I love, Desmond Ridder. That is my guy. Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. That dude is a stud.
Well, I'll tell you what. We've got some interesting lines from Coolbet, and we'll do the Coolbet lines with Andy right now. Just before we do that, I do have to thank a few of our other sponsors, including Princess Auto. Hey, shout out to Peterman Gallant. They are looking good at the World Curling Championships. Of course, we've done our Princess Auto curling reports all season long. Season just about done. Princess Auto is going to be there as the sponsor of the Bombers pregame tailgate parties all season long, and again, a big sponsor of the Gold Eyes as well. And in addition to all they're doing for our local sports teams, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. You can visit them on one of 2 local locations, Panet Road and Westside Portage Avenue, or shop online 24/7 365 at princessauto.com. Hey, if you're looking for a great spot to watch the draft tonight with some buddies, no better place to do that than your local Boston Pizza. Get a couple big schooners, some delicious Boston's wings, some gourmet pizzas, and watch everything transpiring from here in Las Vegas at your local Boston Pizza. And of course, whether it's the Winnipeg Jets, playoff hockey starting next week, BP bars, sports lounges are the place to be. And you can also get their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. Cheers to our friends at Nick and Nikki DQ. I know Nick's been gallivanting around. I saw on his Instagram he's having a great trip for one of his pals' 40th birthdays. But the Nick and Nikki DQ team continue to serve up the incredible new stack burgers. They were always the most underrated burgers in the fast food game. Now they might simply be the best.
Dude, I love those burgers. I swear to God, I love those DQ burgers. Sorry to interrupt the read, but I'm passionate about it, and I agree. They are the most underrated burger in the market. I freaking love those burgers. I love them.
We're going to get you move it to the peg.
Sorry,
We'll maybe do a live, maybe a video or taste test at one of the Nick and Nicky DQs. You can go try the new Stack Burgers, DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, or DQ St. Anne's. And if you do have an event coming up where you need nothing better than make your event the top drawer with the DQ ice cream cake, they're at DQ Manitoba on Twitter. They'll get you set up, and you can pick it up quick and easy at any of the local Nick and Nicky DQs. And hey, just before we get to the Coolbet Lines, we were here last night. We had Austin Eckler join us, had a few drinks. Of course, we're in Bar Canada. How could I not get a Canadian club and ginger? Now, the girls here have been doing such a great job taking care of us. I mean, they may be one of the best CC and gingers I've ever had. But when I get back to the city, and you can do it right now, you don't even need to worry about mixing your own cocktail, because the ready-to-drink CC and ginger is the drink of the summer, and it's ready now at Manitoba Liquor Marts and at beer stores. And if you look at the Canadian Club display at one of 26 Manitoba Liquor Marts, buy CC product, and you will get a free can to try it out. But listen, it's amazing. You know how good it is. Pick it up in 6-packs around it. 1750 mL's Canadian Club on sale all along at Manitoba Liquor Mart. So we're here live at Bar Canada in Vegas. It's round 1 of the draft tonight, and Coolbet has a ton of lines for tonight's draft. It's interesting because Coolbet you can bet on right now. Here at the books, for the last couple days, there have been draft props have been able to, but because of the nature of the draft, there's no over-unders right now on the board pretty much anywhere here right now. So if you do want to get in, Coolbet is the place to be. Use the promo code WST if you've never played at Coolbet before. We'll give you a 100% bonus on your first deposit, up to $200. All right, Andy, let's go through some of these props right now. You can see them on Coolbet Canada. I retweeted them out from Hustlerama as well. NFL draft, first overall draft pick. These numbers blow me away. Trayvon Walker now minus 500. Aiden Hutchinson plus 325. He has been thought to be the number 1 pick for a long, long time. To me, there's got to be value in Hutchinson right now. Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't see anything. Put it this way, if it was up to me and I'm the Jags, I'm taking Hutchinson. There's not anything for me to suggest that Trayvon Walker should be a minus 500 favorite unless they know something that we don't. And that often is the case when people are setting up books. But when you look at this, the other guys that are up there, Ike McQuanwu, Kayvon Thibodeau at 35-1, Evan Neal 35-1, and Malik Willis at 66-1. In your opinion, is it a 2-horse race for this number 1 pick between Walker and Hutchinson?
Yep, I think, and I am blown away by that number. I'm going to get on Coolbet. I think when we're done, I'm going to put some coin on Hutchinson.
You got to call it in. You got to call it in because we can't do it here in Nevada. That's part of the reason why I'm bringing the odds up here from on Twitter as opposed to going in. We're geo-blocked right now, Andy. However, wherever you're listening or if you're back at home, you are not. Jump on it.
Got to be Hutchinson.
Plus 325.
That seems. Now, the tricky part is, though, Hutchinson seems to be the logical favorite, but the way this draft is, it wouldn't necessarily blow you away if it was Walker or even Thibodeau, because there's really not that true number 1. Hutchinson has been thought of to be the guy. That plus 325, I'd be taking Hutchinson, no doubt.
No doubt about it. Okay, let's go to the next offering. We've talked about the quarterbacks. First of all, how many quarterbacks drafted in the first round? The over-under is 3.5, although if you think that there'll be 4 QBs picked, it's plus 260. I think there's a reason why minus 357 on under right now. People just don't think that this class could be. Could there be 4 quarterbacks picked in the first round?
Listen, here's my thinking. I think we're going to see a crazy first round when it comes to trades because of all the multiple picks that you said. Yeah. Right? So you look at teams, they have a guy who's taken. Maybe it's like you said, in teams trying to trade back in to get that 5th-year value on a quarterback. So I think there could. If I'm looking at the guys, I'm very confident that will be taken in the first round. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder. Then you get Matt Corral and Sam Howell. They are yelling at me for second round. If you take those guys in the first round, folks, that's a stretch. That is a real stretch. So I think that's really a case where you look at it and it's like, could someone jump back in? Could perhaps, but I would say 3 makes a lot of sense to me.
First quarterback drafted, Malik Willis, minus 200. Pickett's been the guy all year long, but as it often happens, we get closer to draft and people start sniffing out other guys. And it seems like Willis is the favorite right now at minus 200. Pickett at plus 175. And you mentioned this guy, Desmond Ridder, 10-1. Could there be a team that maybe is quietly trying to keep a lid on it but likes him? And could he maybe be the first guy off the board? That's a 10-1 prop right now.
I'll tell you this. if he goes to the right situation, and that is a big if with quarterbacks. Just remember, Josh Allen going to the Buffalo Bills in 2018. Well, imagine if he went to the Jets. Imagine if he went to Arizona. Josh Allen at that time had the highest ceiling, but also the biggest bust possibility. Went to the stable Bills, off you go, and now he's tremendous. Desmond Ridder in the right situation, Huss, that guy's going to be the best quarterback in this draft. Mark it, record it, book it right now. That guy goes to the right spot, and I just pray to the football gods that he doesn't go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is my biggest fear, that he goes to the Steelers and he haunts me for the next 20 years like big freaking Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, just proving you right every week in and week out and twice a year against the Cleveland Browns.
Every year. I think that's great. Now, I don't think he's going to be the first one off the board. I think he should, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, well, it only takes one GM to kind of identify. I mean, let's think about Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes, the Chiefs knew that this was a guy that would go at some point. They were picking 27th. They moved up. Now, he wasn't the first quarterback picked at that time. Of course, Deshaun Watson and the other guys were ahead of him. But it was still a big, big jump up. And it just goes to show you there's quarterbacks and then there's every other position right now. And there is a premium, and that is why you got to pay and you got to go up to get your guy if there is that guy you're thinking. Wide receivers, there are so many talented wide receivers. The over-under on number of wideouts drafted in the first round is 6.5. Over is even money. Under is minus 127. There's a reason why this number is. We've heard anywhere from 6 to 7, potentially 8. But here's 7 guys off the board, do you think? And who's number 1? If you're picking and you need a receiver and they're all on the board, who are you taking, Andy?
Boy. Okay, I'll tell you, my combine crush this year was Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. He will not be the first guy taken, but again, I think this guy has all the tools and can be a Deebo Samuel type, or not Deebo, DK Metcalf type of value.
I've seen him repeatedly going to Green Bay and many mocks, Packers picking twice at 22 and 28.
Perfect. He would look good on your Chiefs, too. Ooh, boy, would he look good on your Chiefs. But who's the best guy? I think it might be one of the Ohio State receivers. I think it might be Garrett Wilson, could be Chris Olave. This depends, though, Huss. It is a Neapolitan ice cream draft when it comes to wide receiver. What, do you like a little strawberry? Well, you got your zippy guy in Olave and Wilson. You like your big dogs, like a little chocolate vanilla mix? Well, then you can go your Drake London, who's a monster, but has some drop issues. Jameson Williams would have been the consensus first pick, tore his ACL late. So you're probably not going to get him till October, November. So where do you go? I think it will probably be Garrett Wilson first, but there are so many different types, and you're so close that it really depends what you need. If you need an inside guy or a fast guy or a big guy. There's so many options.
Drake London's, Garrett Wilson minus 152 to be the first wide receiver taken. Drake London at plus 250, Jameson Williams plus 300. Which is interesting because I've seen a number of mocks with him falling all the way down to the Chiefs because of that ACL. And
he could tumble.
Listen, I would be more than willing to be patient for half a season to get a player like that because he really does seem to be, he's got the hood. I don't know what's going on with Remis in the back. I know you're listening to that as well. I hope everything's okay back there, Reem. But
hey, brother. We can hear you.
Okay, good. I just hoped everything was okay. We're getting some funny audio in our ears from what's happening back at WST HQ. But Jameson Williams, a player like that, if you could wait on him and put him into a situation, I mean, that's a best case scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs. You're patient for half a season, you get a guy come in that would have the potential to be as close to a replacement for Tyreek Hill as you could possibly get out of this draft. And that's Sky as well. Sky Woods.
Right. If I'm getting I'm trying to remember the height. I believe he's small. I believe he's a tiny guy. I don't love those.
So is Tyreek.
Well, yeah. But you know what? He's Tyreek Hill. When you look at some of those guys, they are the exception, right? Like he's elite, but it's that durability issue, not a factor with Tyreek. Here's the guy, Treylon Burks. Watch him. That could be a sneaky play for the first guy off the board. Because he has Deebo Samuel type tendencies. He has been compared to him, and I think that is a play where, because he's lined up in the backfield, he's been a receiver, inside, outside. Again, we use that word, weapon. Treylon Burks, and he's got the size. He's almost 6'3", big body dude. he is the new Deebo Samuel coming in. That could be the first guy off the board. Again, depending who's going to take the receiver. I might put a couple bucks on Treylon Burks.
Interesting. 33-1 at Coolbet right now. Okay, final one we want to get to. Here's some draft totals. You just let me know if any of these numbers jump out to you one way or the other based on what you're looking at. Offensive linemen drafted in the first round, over under 7.5. Cornerbacks drafted in the first round, over under 4.5. Offensive players in the first round, 15.5, and defensive players, 16.5. Any number or either side on any four of those jump out to you, Andy?
Boy, those all sound a typical book. Those all sound pretty good.
There's a
right?
reason these odds makers get paid the big bucks, right? They nail it all the time. But
these all sound good.
There's a right answer in each one. It's just hard coming to that conclusion.
There is. I think when we look at it, it might be the defensive players maybe with a slight edge because we're all so fantasy football focused and it's offense. But the defensive side is super deep. There's some stud corners. The edge rushers, phenomenal, and it's quietly, I don't think it's necessarily been talked about. It's a sneaky good offensive line class and the receivers. So I think it's probably going to be pretty close to 50-50. I would take the slight edge on the defensive players.
Excellent stuff. Well, I got to tell you, great seeing you in person here. And I'm really looking forward to this draft event tonight over at Circa and the Circa
Stadium Swim, baby.
We're going to get a chance to see what that place is all about. Yeah. And I love the fact that this draft is now 3 days because we get the first round, some intrigue for the second and third round, and then Saturday. I think our boy Austin Eckler is going to be making a pick as well coming up on Saturday.
That's right. He's going to be doing it Saturday, and then tomorrow it's the final day of the college fantasy football draft auction, our franchise auction. So again, guys, UFFSports.com. Read it, click on it, buy a team. Let's have some fun.
Right on. Well, listen, hey, before we finish the show, let's get Remis back in here to see Remo. Obviously, a very fun show with Andy here live and some great stuff, talking Jets and more with Bauming and Scott Billeck. I know you're not necessarily a big NFL draft guy. I guess you're probably just going to be obsessing over each and every goal in the National Hockey League, finishing up your fantasy hockey finals with 2 days left in the schedule, with the exception of that Jets-Kraken game.
I'm in the fantasy hockey final, so that's what I'm focused on.
Attaboy.
And baseball. So I want to know who's playing tonight. I'm kind of freaking out. I got Gaudreau and Kachuk. I'm worried about them. So I'm looking for, and baseball as well. There's some baseball going. So I'm pumped for whatever's going to be happening there.
Baseball right now and a bunch of getaway games today. And damn it, I can't believe I forgot to get a bet in before these games because now they're going
early.
on. I'm fitting up the show. Everything starts so early here, Andy. But Jays with 2 on and 1 out right now, bottom of the third. If you're watching live with us here on YouTube, you can get on over and see some afternoon baseball action. Remo, one more show from Vegas tomorrow, and it should be a good one. Of course, Weeb's World will join us for his weekly spot, and we'll actually get into a little bit of draft reaction from here in Vegas early on with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton as well. And
lovely.
We shouldn't forget, tomorrow, Ice are playing, and Sunday, Jets finishing up the season. It's also Valor FC's first game or home game of the year. They put up a half dozen on Atletico Ottawa last week. They're finally coming back after 3 games on the road, 1-1-1, and the new head coach, Phil DeSantos, will get us ready for this weekend's Valor FC opener. So we're going to have a lot to talk about, and of course, Jets-Calgary as well. It was supposed to be the final game of the season, but it is the final weekend of the season for the Jets coming up, and we'll talk about it all tomorrow, Reem.
Yeah, here we do have a pair of ice tickets to give away. We can see if this thing works for Game 5. I got them because we had some issues. And there are people in chat house are coming in saying, what's happening with Beyak? And they didn't know. But yes.
Okay. Well, you obviously weren't there. We talked about it right off the top of the program. TSN announced earlier today that Dennis Beyak is retiring as voice of the Winnipeg Jets at the end of the season. I mean, Dennis has had such an incredible career and has been such a big part of this Winnipeg hockey community since this team came here in 2011. And he's going to spend a little bit more time with the wives, a little bit more time at the golf course. But TSN has said that he will still be part of their international hockey broadcast team, which will include the World Championships coming up. So, we spent a lot of time right off the top of the show. I mean, that really was the big story in Winnipeg right before we went on, with Dennis having 2 more games to call. So set your PVRs for Friday and Sunday afternoon, Dennis Beyak's final 2 games, and we will certainly look forward to hopefully getting Dennis on the show and talk about his incredible career on both sides of the camera and both sides of the business, being with working with the hockey teams and then turning into one of the most decorated broadcasters in hockey. It's been a great show. So what do you want to do? Exclamation mark tickets or something right now?
Yeah, I'm going to try to. So we had problems on Friday. This better work. I'm gonna be
I can't see this. So can you just kind of let people know what up? Because I don't have the YouTube going like I usually do when we're back at home.
All right. Well, let's try this. Exclamation tickets in chat if you want to go to the Ice Game 5 against Prince Albert. You know, they won. Okay, it's working. So they won what? They won 10-1 in Game 4, and you think, okay, they're gonna lay the hammer down here, in Game 3 and Game 4, and they lost. How is that? Is that unbelievable?
That was strange. It was very rare. But you know what? Credit to PA. They got embarrassed in Game 3, and I think went out in front of their home fans and at least gave them, a good memory, because I think it's highly unlikely that this series gets back there for game number 6. So if you'd like to see the Winnipeg Ice win their first series, or have the opportunity, let's maybe not get ahead of ourselves, to win their first series in Winnipeg at the Ice Cave on Friday night, right now, exclamation mark tickets, and we'll send you a pair of tickets to get out there. So I guess, Remis, we've got a chance to everyone get in there. We end the contest. We've got 30 seconds for people to get it in, and then we can spin the wheel, wheel of winners on WST. You're gonna love this, Andy.
There you go. I like it. Our buddy Jamie Thomas says hello too. He's jealous you're down here.
GT. Well, he would have been great to have on. He's kind of busy with some other things right now.
A little bit.
If only this could have been a week later, although he wouldn't have committed to that, because I think he and everyone involved with the Winnipeg Jets thought that they'd be playing next week into the playoffs.
Well,
but unfortunately, that is not the case. And, while Remis finishes up closing up the contest and getting the wheel ready, one of the other things that, has been very interesting talking to locals here around, and obviously guys at the sports book, has been the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Golden Knights have been the story of the last week or so, because that really has been the only thing interesting as to who else was going to be in the playoffs. Right. And, for them, with all the aggressive moves they've made, the amount of money that they've spent well above the cap, trying to get in there, to miss the playoffs, a colossal failure. But the other part of it is, Andy, the success that they had so early, they raised the bar so high for an expansion team. This is the first time they've missed the playoffs, which speaks to the success that they've had. And I know there is some speculation as to what Bill Foley does going forward. Does he keep the hockey management? It's pretty hard to look and say that this group over 5 years hasn't done a pretty darn good job. But it wouldn't be the first time for a pro sports owner to have an itchy trigger finger. We already saw them have it with Gerard Gallant, and maybe it happens on a more broad scale after the disappointment of this season here in Vegas.
It couldn't actually. Derek Stevens, the owner of all this, was knighted because he's like one of the top sponsors. So he was knighted at the Golden Knights game. You got the jersey and all that. They had a sword, and also if you're a top sponsor, you get knighted. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's going to be quiet at T-Mobile. It'll just be UFC and whatnot. But this city is going to be rocking. We've seen. You just go onto the streets. Of course, we're downtown. Whether you're downtown on the Strip, basically a rainbow of NFL colors. I'm going to throw my Mahomes on for our event a little later on. Yeah. You've got the Browns. Everyone feels a lot of hope when you're going into draft week, no matter what team you're behind.
Oh yeah, you're pumped. It's Christmas morning. What's the new toy? What am I getting? Are you gonna be disappointed? Or you got what's it gonna be?
When did the Browns get a toy?
Tomorrow. Second round. They get second round. The toy is gonna be Deshaun Watson. Now when is it all year? Who knows, right? That's gonna be the big if, but. That's interesting, as well as with all those teams with multiple picks. Again, I think we're going to see a bunch of trades. I think it's going to be a very active first round.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Remo, is the wheel ready?
Yeah, let me, so it's all done. I'm just going to grab the list of names. I'm closing the entries. Thanks to everyone. So this is for Friday's Ice Game. Shout out to Brian Munns and the Ice. who are
Yeah,
hooking us
you
up
know
with
what?
these.
Hey, I'll say this. As much as it is unfortunate that they didn't end up, icing their opponents, excuse the pun, on, last night, another chance for people to get out and see the ice. And if you're not able to go to if you're not going to the Jets game, only a couple games left, we know what's happening with them. There is playoff hockey. And, of course, tune into the show tomorrow. You still do have some time to go to our Instagram page at Winnipeg Sports Talk WPG for your chance to win tickets to Saturday's regular season Moose finale down at Canada Life Center. And, of course, next week we'll be talking ice playoffs and Moose playoffs because, albeit the Jets will be done for the year, Ice and Moose will be on their way to try to capture a championship, Calder Cup, and, of course, a WHL championship and a spot in the Memorial Cup. By the way, just while Remis gets this wheel ready, we've already seen some great jerseys. I saw a Juju Smith-Schuster Pittsburgh jersey, and I said, hey, that's our guy now. He said, I know, but we're in Vegas. It's really hot. This is a dry fit, so it was going to keep me cool today. I'm still rocking the colors. But how about this one we've got at the bar? And I won't be able to turn the camera on. But
what is that
Jack Youngblood Rams old school jersey. You want to talk about the Legends League?
Dude, he's in the Legends League.
I'm sure he was a high draft pick by somebody.
He was. He's on one of the teams for sure. Yeah, Youngblood. Oh, boy, that's a nice jersey. I don't think the original had Jack on the on the top.
No, it did because there was Joel Youngblood.
Did it really?
As well. Yeah,
it said Jack in full?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you had to have it. Yeah,
because if it was two J's.
Exactly.
I want to look that up. That's I've never seen that before.
I'm dating myself a little. I've got a couple years on. You remember these wild NFL moments with the yes, Youngblood. No, not Rob Lowe Youngblood, Remis. This is we're talking the National.
I thought this was a Rob Lowe reference. I got excited.
Okay,
anyways,
listen, we do got to get the pod up, but let's spin this wheel.
Yeah, here's anyways, this is our Instagram giveaway. If you're listening to a podcast or are watching here, go to our Instagram page, like it, comment. We'll do the draw. I'll just do it off stream probably Friday. And then
we'll announce the winner tomorrow on the program.
And then we'll announce
then there's that great picture of us with Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
What a cool dude.
I did see.
There we go. Look at that. Boom.
Here's the picture. I did see that place you guys are going to, the Circa Swim. Is this it?
That's it, baby.
This is insane. I got to go to this.
Stadium swim. And then afterwards, we're going to Legacy Club, which is at the top of the circuit, overlooks the whole strip and desert and all. That's crazy.
This is crazy.
Going to be a good night. I've been wanting to see Circus Swim for a long time, or Stadium Swim. And, as I said, Andy's got his brown Speedo ready to turn some heads down at the day pool for
very little,
for sure.
It will leave very little to the imagination, Huss. Let me
oh, my God.
All right, here's for the ice tickets tomorrow.
Yeah.
And thanks to everyone that entered, and good luck to you all.
Yeah, and if you win, send us a thing with your email. And so, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, that's great instructions. Send us a thing at your email. Send an email to winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. This will be a little bit better instructions.
There we go. Wrapping up the end of the show here. I'm sorry.
All right, spin it.
Oh, okay. Here's the Home Depot ads. You can see what I've been Googling on my computer lately. I'm
glad it's Home Depot.
They're following me around. Garden season coming up.
Good thing it's Home Depot.
Yeah, good thing. Yeah, good thing I'm searching for Home Depot. There you go.
Yeah.
Here we go. The Wheel of Winners on WST. Who's going to the ice game? Game 5 tomorrow. Is it Rob Somerville? Is it Matthew? It's Matthew Jensen. What a boy, Matthew. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to everyone that was still stuck around to the end of the program to get in on it. So, yeah, Matthew, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Just send an email. Remis will get your email address, and we'll get those tickets sent out to you. Remo, good show. Big one coming up tomorrow. As I said, we'll get ready for Valor FC. We'll recap the NFL draft. And we will, hey, we're in Vegas. Who loves a buffet better than Ken Wiebe? The buffet will be open tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk for one final time in the regular season with Wiebe's World. Big thanks to Scott Billeck, who joined us earlier today. Darrin Bauming, of course, Michael Remis back at HQ. And my guy,
let's do it, baby.
Andy McNamara.
Too sweet, brother.
By the way, did you see what happened in AEW last night?
No. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. I'm going to watch when I get home.
Okay, well, let's just say it was good for the Kingdom because we are in a fantasy league and the Kingdom is getting things done. Folks, one more time from Bar Canada here at the D, live in Las Vegas, Nevada for the NFL Draft. This has been Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks to all of you for viewing and listening. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making this happen each and every day. And thanks to Andy Mack for coming by and kicking it live here at Bar Canada. And when you're in Vegas next time, make sure you check this place out. And as they say, I think we're working on a little something with our friends here for a Jets trip to play the Golden Knights next season. That's called a tease, folks. Stay with us. Hey, enjoy the draft tonight. All the NHL action. We'll get ready for the Flames and Jets in the final weekend of the regular season tomorrow, and much more live from Vegas here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night, and thanks for being with us.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.